Chapter 25. Lu Yuan's five senses were far more sensitive than a normal person's. Although the smell of blood in the wind was very faint, it was still detected by Lu Yuan. Smell of blood? Where's the smell of blood coming from? I don't smell it. Su Fei shook his head. It's coming from the front. I can smell it very clearly. I can't be wrong. Lu Yuan raised his hand and pointed in front of him. Although Su Fei didn't smell it himself, Lu Yuan's solemn expression made him believe him. He said to the coachman, "Go faster." Horses galloped as a luxurious carriage sped along a small village road. What a strong smell of blood! When they arrived at the entrance of Fengming village, the smell of blood seemed to be unstoppable. Su Fei frowned and said with an ugly expression, "It seems that something has happened in Fengming village. You stay in the carriage. I'll go down and take a look." "Uncle Su, let me go with you," Lu Yuan said. "But your safety." Su Fei hesitated. "I'm also a soul master. I have the ability to protect myself. Besides, if there's any danger, wouldn't it be safer for me to stay by your side?" Lu Yuan smiled. "All right then." Su Fei nodded. Lu Yuan's words made sense. After getting off the carriage, two figures, one big and one small, walked into the village. The scene in front of them was tragic. It was like the scene of a Jura hell. Blood dyed the road red, and the villagers' corpses could be seen everywhere. Every corpse had their stomachs cut open, and their intestines were flowing out. Every corpse had a hole in their left chest, and their hearts had been dug out long ago. The villagers' deaths were so tragic that it made one shudder. Who could have done such a terrible thing? It was too many to count, and even 100 deaths wouldn't be enough to atone for their crimes. Such scum should be cut into pieces. Lu Yuan's face was pale, and his fists were clenched so tightly that they turned white. When had he ever seen such a tragic scene? He suppressed the disgust in his heart, and his heart was filled with anger. Who was it that dared to commit such a heinous crime? How could they do such a thing to unarmed villagers? Su Fei's face was ashen. As a deacon of Fastnow's Martial Soul Palace, he'd been through a lot, but this was the first time he'd seen such a bloody massacre. When they saw this scene, all those with a conscience in their hearts were so furious that their eyes were about to split apart. "Let's go. The bloodstains haven't dried yet. These thugs shouldn't have gone too far. Let's chase after them." Su Fei's voice was low, but it contained an unconcealable killing intent. Lu Yuan nodded, and with a flash of light in his hand, he carried the Peerless World Spear and followed Su Fei. When they reached the center of the village, the massacre became even more intense. Hundreds of corpses of villagers were hung from the tall locust trees. Blood was still dripping from the badly mutilated corpses. There was not a single survivor in the huge village. It was like a ghost town, a blood-red azura field. Take the left path. There were 3 paths that led from the center of the village, but only the left path had bloodstains. Without hesitation, the two chased after the thugs. Su Fei was a soul king, so he was very fast. Lu Yuan was only a soul cultivator, but he had the phoenix dances of the 6 illusions, so the two of them weren't slow at all. With one in front and one behind, the two of them chased after the thugs. Tang Chi bit off half of the heart in his hand. Fresh blood flowed down his lips as he chewed with relish. This fresh heart is indeed delicious. Swallowing the rest of the heart in his hand, Tang Chi licked his lips as if he hadn't had enough yet. His eyes flashed with a scarlet light. His name was Tang Chi, and he was an evil soul ancestor. "Don't drag this out. Hurry up." Tang Chi roared at the group behind him after he finished eating the heart. As the leader of a small group, Tang Chi had a soul elder, 2 soul grandmasters, and a dozen or so soul cultivators under him. Evil soul cultivators relied on slaughter to increase their strength, and Tang Chi loved fresh hearts and virgin blood the most. This time's purge was a purposeful act. The Fengming village wasn't the only village to suffer, and Tang Chi was only one of them. That damned Martial Soul Palace dared to oppose the organization, so this was the organization's revenge. For this operation, the organization had sent a king, 2 generals, 5 team leaders, and a dozen or so small group leaders to attack various large areas. Among them, Tang Chi was in charge of Foaming Village. This beautiful girl and her fresh and delicious heart were all his. Tang Chi felt very happy just thinking about it. Looking at the 10-year-old girl behind him, Tang Chi only felt a wave of heat attack his heart. He had always had some perverted hobbies. On the other side, Su Fei and Lu Yuan were very fast. With a large group of people, Tang Chi's speed naturally couldn't compare to theirs. In the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the two of them had caught up. They're right in front. Lu Yuan's eyes flashed as he looked at the long line not far from them. It seems like there are quite a few of these bastards, Su Fei said as he looked at the dozen or so soul cultivators in front of them. Uncle Su, what do you think we should do? Lu Yuan didn't act blindly. A dozen or so soul cultivators wasn't a weak force. Furthermore, they had villagers in their hands. This was a problem that had to be taken into consideration. Looking at Tang Chi at the front, Su Fei's eyes narrowed. According to the current situation, the guy at the front is their leader. He's not weak. He's at least a soul ancestor, so we have to deal with him first. How we deal with him? Lu Yuan asked. Although Su Fei was a soul king, there were many people on the other side. Although a soul ancestor was weaker than a soul king, it was unrealistic for Su Fei to kill a soul ancestor in a short period of time. Once he was surrounded, it would be very difficult for him to escape. Use poison, Su Fei said with certainty. Poison, Lu Yuan reacted. Are you saying we should poison them? But ordinary poisons are useless against soul cultivators. Soul cultivators had different physiques compared to ordinary people. They were strong enough to resist ordinary poisons. Su Fei took out a white jade bottle from his waist and handed it to Lu Yuan. This is a poisonous powder made from a golden mandala flower. This powder is extremely poisonous and can be spread by breathing. I'll go up and attract their attention. You take advantage of the time when they're not paying attention and sprinkle the powder on them. A golden mandala flower? Lu Yuan took the jade bottle with surprise. He didn't think Su Fei would have such a treasure. The poison of the golden mandala flower was comparable to that of the man-faced demon spider. It was much more powerful than the poison of the mandala snake, which Tang San obtained from his first soul ring. But you have to be careful. Don't touch the powder. It's very hard to deal with, Su Fei warned. Lu Yuan nodded, a hint of eagerness in his eyes. These scum deserve to die. Chapter 26. Putting on his mask, Lu Yuan held the jade bottle in his right hand and stepped on the Phoenix Dance's 6 illusions. His toes tapped on the tree branches, nimble and soundless. The Phoenix Dance's 6 illusions was truly mysterious. With Lu Yuan's deep understanding of its essence, even a soul king like Su Fei couldn't help but light up when he used it. Seeing Lu Yuan move stealthily, Su Fei stared at the team in front of him. A vicious aura rose up spontaneously, and with a stomp of his foot, he charged forward like a bolt of lightning. Tang Chi's heart suddenly skipped a beat as he felt a sense of danger. Leaning to the right, a wind blade streaked across the ground where he had just been standing, leaving a deep gash in the ground. Everyone, be careful. There's a situation. Tang Chi cried out, causing all the soul cultivators to react. Roar! With a fierce lion's roar, Su Fei's martial soul had already entered his body. His entire body grew to over 2 meters in height. The muscles on his arms bulged, and his claws were sharp. Behind him, a lion stood erect with 5 soul rings shining brightly. A soul king. Tang Chi's heart trembled. Blood-colored soul force rose up, and a blood-colored humanoid figure appeared behind him. It was his martial soul, the blood mantis. The white, yellow, and purple soul rings rippled beneath his body. He was a rank 45 soul ancestor. On the other side, seeing that there were people blocking their path, the remaining soul elders, 2 soul grandmasters, and 8 soul cultivators came forward and surrounded Su Fei. White and yellow light flashed, and in a moment, several dozen soul rings appeared in front of them. Su Fei's face was grave. A soul ancestor, a soul elder, 2 soul grandmasters, and 8 soul cultivators. This was a force that even he would have to face with his full strength. Second soul skill, wind blade strangulation. Su Fei roared, and the second 100-year soul ring suddenly lit up. A gust of wind appeared, and with a whistling sound, it rushed toward the soul cultivators around him. "Dodge!" Tang Chi shouted. Ordinary soul cultivators simply couldn't withstand the soul skill of a soul king. Wind blade strangulation was the second soul skill of Su Fei's raging gale lion martial soul. It was also an area of effect skill and was most suitable for clearing the battlefield. Tang Chi wasn't hurt at all. The Soul Exalt and the two Soul Grandmasters were only slightly injured, but they weren't in any danger. The remaining 8 Soul Cultivators weren't so lucky, though. 4 of them were killed by the wind blades, and the other 4 were heavily injured. Damn it! Tang Chi couldn't help but curse. "Give me your life." Blood rain. Tang Chi's third purple soul ring lit up. Blood Mantis' third soul skill, Blood Rain. Every drop of blood rain carried a strong, corrosive toxin. Once hit, the skin of a person would fester. Su Fei didn't dare to underestimate Tang Welin's attack, and quickly activated his fourth soul skill, Whirlwind Clouds. The wind howled as it collided with the rain of blood. Under the influence of the wind, the rain of blood drifted towards Tang Chi. No matter what, Su Fei was still a Soul King, so he had the upper hand at this moment. Blood Sea Rise. Tang Chi's second soul skill, Blood River, poured out a stream of blood from his feet and rushed toward Su Fei. The blood contained a deadly toxin that could easily be poisoned if one wasn't careful. Wind Cloud Surge. Hurricane Shield. Su Fei's second and fifth soul skills were activated at the same time. A fierce gale unexpectedly stopped the Blood River's momentum. The gale blew the rain of blood and poured it over Tang Chi's head. "Ah!" Tang Chi screamed miserably. Although his martial soul was the Blood Mantis, the blood rain didn't distinguish between friend and foe. Tang Chi's cheeks were drenched by the rain of blood and began to rot. The poison of the blood rain caused Su Fei's heart to jump. Black Chain. Ghost Blade Strike. Soul-devouring Blood Claw. Su Fei had just gained the upper hand when the Soul Exalt and 2 Soul Grandmasters attacked him from the other side. Su Fei didn't dare to underestimate them and dodged all of their attacks. While Su Fei and the 4 Soul Grandmasters were fighting, Lu Yuan's figure stealthily appeared behind a Soul Grandmaster and directly stabbed him with a world-shaking spear. Someone is stealing. The other Soul Grandmaster was about to warn him, but a spear pierced his throat and killed him instantly. Seeing the 2 Soul Grandmasters under his command, Lu Yuan was somewhat confused. This was the first time he had killed someone, and a fresh life had died in his hands. Lu Yuan had an indescribable feeling in his heart, and a strong urge to vomit attacked him. But when he thought of the previous villagers' deaths, Lu Yuan's eyes suddenly became sharp. He firmly suppressed the urge to vomit and rushed towards Su Fei's battlefield with the world-shaking spear. Stormy Waves. Seeing the Soul Grandmaster on the side about to attack, Lu Yuan pointed the world-shaking spear in his hand and shot out a move from the vast sea spear art. The spear hadn't arrived yet, but it carried an intense power. The Soul Grandmaster was startled. In his daze, he seemed to have heard the sound of waves. He stretched out his hands and grabbed the spear. In his opinion, he was completely capable of blocking a Soul Grandmaster's attack. Stab! The world-shaking spear pierced the Soul Grandmaster's heart. He had overestimated himself and underestimated Lu Yuan. With Lu Yuan's current strength and the might of the vast sea spear art, he definitely wouldn't be able to block it. Blood spurted out as the Soul Grandmaster's heart was pierced. The Soul Grandmaster couldn't be any more dead. "Good job, kid," Su Fei praised. He retreated with a smile on his face. "Uncle Su, you're injured?" Lu Yuan's eyes focused. There were several wounds on Su Fei's body, and blood was constantly flowing out. These guys really aren't simple. A Soul Ancestor, a Soul Elder, and 2 Soul Grandmasters were actually able to injure a Soul King like me. Su Fei's expression was grave. These Soul Grandmaster's skills were somewhat strange, and their damage was very high. It's a good thing you killed a Soul Grandmaster. Now it'll be a bit easier. Lu Yuan had unexpectedly killed a Soul Grandmaster, greatly reducing the pressure on him. "Stinking brat, you're courting death." Su Fei was happy. but Tang Chi was furious. Who would have thought that a Soul Grandmaster would be so disappointing and be killed by a Soul Grandmaster brat? Ding Yin, you deal with that brat. Ding Yin was the Soul Elder under Tang Chi. Her martial soul was the Soul Devouring Chain, and she was a rank 38 Soul Elder. You forced me to use my 4th soul skill, Bloodthirsty Berserk Transformation. Tang Chi roared, blood-red patterns crawling up his face. His eyes turned scarlet, and a tyrannical aura erupted from him. This aura was so strong that it wasn't inferior to Su Fei's at all. Tang Chi's scarlet eyes widened as he pounced towards the two with blood-red ghost claws. Ding Yin's soul-devouring chain also flew towards Lu Yuan. Uncle Su, Lu Yuan, and Su Fei looked at each other and covered their mouths and noses at the same time. A jade bottle flew out and exploded in the air. A yellow powder enveloped Tang Chi and the others. Chapter 27. Caught off guard. The golden mandala pollen enveloped Tang Chi's group of 3 and directly entered their bodies through their nostrils. This poison, comparable to the man-faced demon spider's poison, quickly flared up as soon as it entered their bodies. The golden mandala's poison was classified as a neurotoxin, and the first symptoms were hallucinations. Then, their limbs would stiffen, their blood would congeal into blood clots, and finally, their soul would fly to the 9 springs. The golden mandala's poison was one of the most potent poisons out there, and its intensity wasn't something a normal person could withstand. Even a Soul King wouldn't be able to last long under the effects of this poison, let alone a Soul Ancestor or someone below. The moment the poison entered the Soul Grandmaster's body, the poison began to flare up. He was now paralyzed on the ground, his limbs stiff, his mouth foaming, and even his eyes were starting to lose focus. The Soul Elder named Ding Yin wasn't any better. His limbs were twitching, and his eyes were blank. He had already sunk deep into hallucinations, clearly having been poisoned. Tang Chi, the one with the deepest soul force, was still standing strong. His scarlet eyes were fixed on Su Fei and Lu Yuan, full of resentment. You guys actually used poison? Su Fei laughed disdainfully. To deal with a group of beasts like you, using any method isn't excessive. Lu Yuan nodded in agreement. To be able to do such a cruel thing. So what if they used poison? Even if they were chopped into minced meat, they wouldn't be wronged. It was just a pity that the golden mandala pollen was so hard to come by. When he first saw Su Fei's divine might, directly taking down 8 Soul Grandmasters with a single skill, Lu Yuan thought that Su Fei would be able to deal with them by himself and wouldn't need the pollen. But who would have thought that a Soul Ancestor, a Soul Elder, and 2 Soul Grandmasters working together would be able to injure Su Fei? Although Lu Yuan had unexpectedly killed a Soul Grandmaster, the strength of the remaining 3 couldn't be underestimated. This was especially true when Tang Chi's 4th soul skill was released. His aura wasn't the slightest bit inferior to Su Fei's. To prevent any unexpected accidents from happening, Lu Yuan decisively used the mandala flower powder. While they were unprepared, the 3 of them were poisoned. Uncle Su, who are they? It was Lu Yuan's first time seeing a soul master like Tang Chi. That kind of evil, gloomy, and ruthless aura was definitely not something an ordinary soul master could possess. Furthermore, their strength seemed to be incomparable to ordinary soul masters. The strength Tang Chi had displayed just now was on par with a Soul King, far surpassing the strength of his fellow Soul Ancestor, Fellows. Back then, the Fellows had been beaten to a pulp by an 800-year-old demonic ape. They should be the legendary evil Soul Masters. As the deacon of the Martial Soul Palace, Su Fei was very knowledgeable. He had heard of evil Soul Masters before. Evil Soul Master? Lu Yuan was shocked. Aren't evil Soul Masters active in the Fighting 2 world? How could they be so insolent in the Fighting 2 world? They actually dared to massacre a village in broad daylight. Evil Soul Masters are extremely evil Soul Masters. Most of them have very evil martial souls, and they use the blood and souls of humans or soul beasts to increase their ranks. They commit all kinds of evil deeds. Over the years, The Martial Soul Hall has been working hard to eradicate evil soul masters, and we've achieved significant results. We've killed many evil soul masters. But I didn't expect these evil soul masters to be so bold. They even dared to massacre the hometown of the Pope. It seems like this is their revenge against our Martial Soul Palace. Su Fei's expression was ugly. These evil soul masters had no bottom line. They weren't even fit to be called humans. What about these people? Lu Yuan pointed at Tang Qi and the others. They've been poisoned by the golden mandala pollen. These three will definitely die. But there were 4 evil soul masters who were only seriously injured. They shouldn't die so quickly. Su Fei said, "We don't know if this is just Fengming village or if there are other villages that have been massacred. If it's the latter, then this matter is very serious. It'll definitely cause a huge uproar. It might even affect the reputation of our Martial Soul Palace. No matter what, this matter can't be suppressed." Lu Yuan's eyes flashed. Even the Pope's hometown has been massacred. This will definitely stir up the nerves of all the major powers on the Douluo continent. Maybe some sects are waiting to see a joke. The revenge of the evil soul masters was definitely sensational. The Martial Soul Palace had to give a satisfactory answer to this matter. Otherwise, the Martial Soul Palace might not be recognized by the common people. After all, if they couldn't even deal with a single evil soul master, how could the Martial Soul Palace maintain order on the continent? Lu Yuan rubbed his chin. Logically speaking, the Martial Soul Palace should be paying attention to the Pope's hometown. Why didn't we see a single person from the Martial Soul Palace? Maybe they've been tricked. These evil soul masters aren't ordinary. Su Fei said as he looked at Tang Qi, who was on the verge of death. Then what should we do? Lu Yuan asked. Of course we have to report everything that happened. We have to take the 4 survivors with us. Maybe we can get some information out of them. As for him, I think it's a good idea to feed him to the dogs. Su Fei said as he looked at the struggling Tang Qi. Tang Qi was dead, and his death was extremely tragic. The hyenas tore his corpse into pieces, and his innards spilled all over the ground. However, Lu Yuan didn't feel disgusted when he saw this scene. Instead, he felt an inexplicable sense of satisfaction. Only a crueler method could be used to deal with an animal like this. Stop killing with killing and curb violence with violence. Su Fei and Lu Yuan went to the local martial spirit sub-palace with the 4 tongues for alive. Sure enough, the incident in Fengming village shocked everyone in the branch hall. The news was sent to Martial Soul City on the same day. As the only 2 witnesses, Su Fei and Lu Yuan stayed in the branch hall to assist in the investigation. The Martial Soul branch hall didn't receive any news this time. This was because the branch hall's attention had been diverted elsewhere before this. A mysterious murder case had attracted their attention because the person who died was none other than the Vice Hall Master of the Martial Soul Branch Hall. Now that the incident in Fengming village was exposed, they knew that the death of the Vice Hall Master was the work of evil soul masters. Their real target was Fengming village. They wanted to attack the Pope and take revenge on the Martial Soul Palace by massacring Fengming village. As for the 4 survivors, they spilled everything they knew after a round of torture. Even though they didn't know much detail, they still knew that the incident in Fengming village wasn't an isolated case. The evil soul master's revenge hadn't ended yet. After hearing this news, the branch hall sent the information to the Martial Soul Branch Hall. Su Fei and Lu Yuan also left the branch hall and rushed towards Martial Soul City. Chapter 28. The Pope's Palace. On the high throne, a woman sat quietly. She had a beautiful face, snow-white skin, and beautiful wine-red hair. Her snow-white hand held a golden scepter tightly. She was wearing a luxurious robe, and she looked graceful and elegant. She was the supreme ruler of the Martial Soul Palace, Pope Bibidon. Your Holiness, there is news from the Balak Kingdom's palace. A red-robed bishop knelt in the palace with a letter in his hand. Present it to me. The Pope's red lips moved slightly, but her cold voice was filled with dignity. As soon as he finished speaking, a man in a chrysanthemum-style robe took the letter from the cardinal and respectfully handed it to Bibi Dawn. She took the letter and read it carefully with her beautiful eyes. Dawn! This was the sound of the scepter falling to the ground. Bibidine's expression was indifferent, but there was an indescribable anger in her eyes. Fengming village has been massacred. Bibidine's tone was light, but it was earth-shattering. Everyone in the palace was shocked. What? Everyone was in disbelief. Fengming village was the Pope's hometown. Someone dared to massacre Fengming village? Your Holiness, how are the casualties? The man wearing a chrysanthemum robe asked. The old and the weak died. Only a few women and children survived. Bibidine's voice was filled with anger. Although she didn't miss Fengming village, it was still her hometown. This was undoubtedly a slap to her face. Who dares to do such a heartless thing? The man continued. There was anger in his voice. This was also a challenge to the martial soul palace's dignity. Who else could it be? Of course, it's those evil soul masters. The letter also said that the evil soul master's target isn't just Fengming village. This is a premeditated revenge. Bibidine's gaze was sharp. Yuguan, I'll leave this matter to you. You must catch all these evil soul masters in one fell swoop. Leave none alive. Yes, Yuguan. The man in the chrysanthemum robe bowed slightly. He was the famous chrysanthemum Douluo of the martial soul palace, Yuguan. The letter mentioned that a deacon from Fasno's main palace and a child called Lu Yuan killed those evil soul masters and saved those women and children. How should we deal with this? Bibidine's gaze shifted to the side. I wonder how strong those two are. Yuguan asked. That deacon is a rank 52 soul king. His martial soul is the storm rage lion, and he's 48 years old. That little boy called Lu Yuan is a rank 15 soul master. His martial soul is the golden dragon, and he's 6 years old. It's said that he has innate full soul power. Bibi Dawn said indifferently. Reporting to Your Majesty, Yuguan thinks that we don't need to care about that deacon, and we can just casually give out some rewards. However, that child called Lu Yuan has astonishing talent, and we should focus on nurturing him. That's reasonable. The Golden Dragon is a legendary martial soul, and it's extremely powerful. We should recruit such a talent for our own use. A black-clothed old man on Bibidine's left spoke up. Then send this Lu Yuan to the genius training camp. If he can become the champion in the selection 3 months from now, he'll be my second disciple. Bibi Dawn said indifferently. As you command, Your Majesty. No one objected to Bibidine's words. The genius training camp was a camp set up by the Martial Soul Palace to recruit children under the age of 10. It was specifically set up to select talents for the Martial Soul Palace. Every 3 years, there would be a selection competition, and this year just so happened to be the year that the selection competition began. There were no mediocre people in the genius training camp. Every member had innate soul power of the 6th rank and above. Currently, there were even soul grandmasters in the camp. If Lu Yuan could distinguish himself and become the champion, he would have the qualifications to become His Majesty's disciple. After several days of trekking, Lu Yuan and Su Fei finally arrived at the Martial Spirit City. The Martial Spirit City is so prosperous. Lu Yuan couldn't help but praise. Along the way, he had seen many bustling cities, but even the capital of the Heaven Do Empire paled in comparison to the Martial Spirit City in front of him. This is the holy city in the hearts of all soul masters, Su Fei said with reverence. Lu Yuan didn't comment. What Su Fei said was true. Putting those so-called sects aside, the common soul masters in the world still held the Martial Spirit City in high esteem. Where are we going now? Directly to the Martial Soul Palace? Lu Yuan asked. No, we're going to the guest house first. There are deacons of the Martial Soul Palace who are responsible for receiving guests. We have to wait for orders there. This has always been the rule. Su Fei said. Oh, Lu Yuan nodded. Wasn't this the same as ancient China, where foreign guests had to stay in foreign hotels and wait for the emperor to summon them? It seemed that whether it was the Douluo continent or ancient China, these rules were basically the same. Halt! Lu Yuan and Su Fei's carriage was stopped by a holy knight who was responsible for guarding the martial spirit city. "Let's get out," Su Fei said. Lu Yuan nodded, and the two of them got out of the carriage together. "We are from the martial soul palace of the Fastno province. This is our document." Su Fei took out a document with the seal of the martial soul palace of the Fastno province on it. After verifying the document, the holy knight cupped his hands and said, "The guest house is just ahead. Please go there on foot." Carriages were not allowed near the guest house. After all, this place was close to the pontiff's palace. Unless one was an elder, even a platinum bishop would have to obediently get out of the carriage and walk. The pontiff's authority was inviolable. "Okay, thank you for your trouble." Lu Yuan followed Su Fei into the guest house. There were many people in the guest house. There were more than a dozen children who were about the same age as Lu Yuan. These children were the young geniuses sent by the martial soul palace and the minor palace. Generally speaking, geniuses who were sent here had innate soul power of at least the 7th rank. "Oh, there's a newcomer." The one who spoke was a middle-aged man dressed like a sissy. His voice was shrill, and when he spoke, he raised his orchid fingers. His voice was neither masculine nor feminine, and it gave Lu Yuan goosebumps. Yuling, you'd better speak properly." Su Fei frowned and shouted angrily. "Oh, little Fei, why did the Fastno Palace send you here? What a rare sight." Yuling didn't care about Su Fei's words at all. Instead, she pretended to be flirtatious and looked at Su Fei with tender eyes. Lu Yuan felt his stomach churn. Yuling's appearance really disgusted him. Su Fei's face darkened, and he pulled Lu Yuan into the house. "Hey, little Fei, you haven't answered me yet." The shrill voice came again. Su Fei's body trembled, and he sped up again. Chapter 29. Su Fei grabbed Lu Yuan's hand and hurried into the house. "Brother Su, long time no see." Seeing Su Fei, a burly man in the room greeted him. This person had a rather majestic appearance. He was tall and burly, and his face was full of sideburns. However, he looked rather forthright. "Long time no see, Brother Chu." Su Fei returned the greeting with a smile. "Is this kid the student that Fastno's main palace is sending over? She looks fair and tender, very pretty." The burly man patted Lu Yuan's shoulder with his palm leaf-sized palm. A huge force came from his palm, causing Lu Yuan's body to sink. The burly man was surprised to see that Lu Yuan didn't move at all. "This kid is quite sturdy. Not bad, he's a good seedling." "Of course, our Lu Yuan has innate full soul power." Su Fei laughed. "Innate full soul power? That's incredible," the burly man exclaimed. This was a rare talent. He thought the kid he sent this year was a genius with innate 9th rank soul power, but he didn't expect Su Fei to send someone with innate full soul power. "Come, Lu Yuan, let me introduce you. This is Chu Yu, a deacon of Silvis. His martial soul is the grizzly bear, and he's a rank 52 soul king, just like me." "Chu Yu? Are you sure that's his name?" Looking at the fierce-looking and burly man, he was unable to associate him with Chu Yu's reputation, and he couldn't help but wonder in his heart. "Nice to meet you, Uncle Chu. I'm Lu Yuan." Lu Yuan bowed. "Nice to meet you." The burly man pulled out a boy from behind him. "This is Douluo, a prodigy from Silvis. He has innate 9th rank soul power. Let's get to know each other." "Nice to meet you. I'm Lu Yuan." "Nice to meet you. I'm Douluo." Douluo was a shy boy. "How long have you been here, Brother Chu?" Su Fei asked. "We've been here for 3 days, but there's still no arrangement." "What's the schedule for this year's exam?" Chu Yu asked. "Is that so?" Su Fei stroked his chin and muttered. "I heard that something has happened recently. Now that the martial spirit city is on high alert, it should be something big," Chi said. Hearing this, Lu Yuan's drooping eyes suddenly lit up. In the air, Su Fei and Lu Yuan's eyes intertwined. "Do you know what happened?" Su Fei calmly asked. "I'm not sure, but this matter must be very serious. Even the chrysanthemum Douluo has been dispatched," Chu Yu said in a quiet voice. "Even a titled Douluo has been mobilized." Lu Yuan rolled his eyes. It seemed like the evil soul masters had really stirred up a hornet's nest. According to his conjecture, the martial soul palace's actions were definitely targeted at evil soul masters. After all, the martial soul palace could not afford to be humiliated. Sigh, what an eventful time. Su Fei sighed. Little Fei Fei, why are you sighing? Can you tell me? A shrill voice came from behind, causing everyone to tremble. Who would be able to stand such a top-quality person? Su Fei immediately shuddered and said, Nothing, you heard wrong. Really? Did I hear wrong? Little Fei Fei, if you have something to hide, you must tell me. She winked at Su Fei. Blurg. A retching sound came from his side. It turned out to be Chuyu. Chuyu, what do you mean? Yuling was embarrassed and angry. She pointed her finger at Chuyu. No, nothing. Blurg. Chuyu vomited again. Blurg. 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 Chuyu's vomiting seemed to have caused a chain reaction. More than half of the people in the room vomited. Yuling's face was ashen as she looked at everyone angrily. You guys are too much. Su Fei shouted. Little Fei Fei, you're the best. Yuling looked at Su Fei with a touched face. Count me in if you want to vomit. Blurg. Su Fei turned around and vomited. Yuling was speechless. Lu Yuan shook his head helplessly. These people are really top quality. Lord Bishop has arrived. Welcome, Lord Bishop. Everyone saluted. It was a red-robed bishop from the Pontiff Palace. He was a soul sage, and his status was much higher than everyone else's. Under the orders of His Holiness, all deacons of the sub-palaces, and main palaces are to bring their subordinates to the Martial Spirit Academy tomorrow. Those who pass the test will stay, and those who didn't are to return immediately. The red-robed bishop said loudly. Yes, Lord Bishop. Everyone replied in unison. Where are Su Fei and Lu Yuan from the main palace of Fastnow? The red-robed bishop asked. Yes, Lord Bishop. Although Su Fei was surprised that the bishop personally called him, he still pulled Lu Yuan forward. You are Su Fei and Lu Yuan? The red-robed bishop asked. Yes, Lord Bishop. The red-robed bishop looked at Lu Yuan with a meaningful look in his eyes and said, Su Fei has contributed greatly by killing an evil soul master in Fengming Village. He will be rewarded with a soul advancement pill and 20,000 gold soul coins. As for Lu Yuan, His Holiness has ordered Lu Yuan to join the Prodigy training camp and participate in the Prodigy selection tournament. No mistakes. Prodigy training camp? Lu Yuan was confused. Lord Bishop, may I ask what kind of place this is? The red-robed bishop said. The Prodigy training camp is a place for the Martial Spirit Palace to select talents. Any prodigy who wishes to join the Pontiff Palace must join the Prodigy selection tournament, which is held once every 3 years. Only the top 3 prodigies are qualified to join the Pontiff Palace. The top 10 Prodigy training camp disciples are exempt from the Martial Spirit Academy and receive the treatment of an elite student. His Holiness values you greatly, so don't disappoint him. Yes, Lord Bishop, Lu Yuan said. That's all then. I'll take my leave now. Tomorrow, someone will escort you to the Prodigy training camp. The red-robed bishop left, leaving the room full of people behind. The deacons of the other subdivisions looked at Su Fei and Lu Yuan with strange eyes. Why were they the only ones who were called out by the red robe among so many people? Brother Su, what's going on? Chuyu whispered. I'll tell you later. For now, let's find a room to stay in. Su Fei didn't want to say too much in public. All right, the room next to mine is empty. You two can stay there. Chuyu smiled. Then I'll have to trouble you, Brother Chu. Su Fei smiled. Following Chuyu, they left the main hall, leaving behind a group of people looking at each other. Chapter 30. After entering the room, Su Fei told Chuyu everything that had happened in Fengming Village, causing Chuyu to feel indignant. Only now did Chuyu understand why the Pope would treat Su Fei and Su Fei favorably. It was because the two of them had avenged the villagers of Fengming Village and saved the face of the Pope and the Martial Soul Palace. In addition to Lu Yuan's innate talent with full soul power, the Pope's favor was understandable. I've also heard that the Genius Training Camp is a place where the Martial Soul Palace selects talents. Su Fei's expression was solemn. There are no mediocre people in the genius training camp. Every one of them is considered a genius in the outside world, and those who can rise above the rest are all heaven's chosen. The golden generation of the Martial Soul Palace came out of the genius training camp, and they were the top 3 in their generation. Su Fei spoke frankly with assurance. Although there aren't any heavens chosen who can compare to the golden generation in every generation, those who come out of the genius training camp stand at the peak of their peers. Chu Yu agreed. Just as Su Fei said, the Martial Soul Palace has 2 main methods to select talents. The first is the Martial Soul Academy. Those who pass the initial examination can enter the Martial Soul Academy, and if they perform well during the course of their studies, they'll be selected and heavily nurtured. The other one is the Genius Training Camp. Compared to the Martial Soul Academy standards, the Genius Training Camp standards are much higher. Furthermore, the training there is very strict. Every student that succeeds in the Genius Training Camp will be highly valued by the Martial Soul Hall. The top 3 will even have the opportunity to enter the Pontiff's Palace and take an elder as their master. But the competition in the Genius Training Camp is extremely fierce, and the training intensity is extremely high. Every year, there are many students who can't handle the intensity of the training and collapse. Many talented soul masters have fallen in the Genius Training Camp. Su Fei's face was serious. So, joining the Genius Training Camp isn't just a favor for you. It's also a strict test for you. It's an opportunity, but it's also a trial. Whether or not you can break through the chrysalis and become a butterfly depends on you. Su Fei looked at Lu Yuan and said sincerely, "Yes, I understand, Uncle Su." Lu Yuan looked determined. "No matter what difficulties lie ahead, I will persevere to the end." "Good ambition." Chu Yu laughed. Su Fei's lips curled into a smile. "I believe in you. After all, you're a genius from our Fastno province. I hope I'll hear the news of you standing out from the training camp in the future. Don't worry, I won't let you down." New Moon Canyon. This was the base of the Genius Training Camp. As the Martial Soul Palace's famous Genius Training Camp, the management of this place was very strict and militarized. Not only were there specialized Soul Master legions stationed here, but the highest commander in charge of management was even a high-level Soul Sage. Every hour, there would be soldiers on duty patrolling. The entire training camp's defense was as solid as a fortress. It was almost impossible for ordinary people to sneak in. Even a Soul Douluo would be discovered if they tried to sneak in, unless they were at least a titled Soul Master. But that was another matter altogether. The requirements for the Genius Training Camp were very high. They only accepted students under the age of 10. Every 3 years, only the top 10 would be able to walk out. If one joined at the age of 6, they would only be able to participate in 2 selections at most. If they were older than 10 and still couldn't walk out, they would be expelled. In other words, only 10 people would be able to walk out in 3 years. The rest, other than those who had just joined, were all failures. Those who didn't meet the requirements didn't have the qualifications to stay in the Genius Training Camp. Since the beginning of the training camp, the students who were able to walk out were all around 9 years old. Without exception, almost all of them were high-level Soul Masters. The most outstanding members of the Golden Generation were all Soul Grandmasters. To date, there hadn't been a single case of 6 or 7 years old who could walk out of the training camp. Therefore, Bibidan's requirements for Lu Yuan were very high, far exceeding the limits of ordinary geniuses. This was also the reason why many of the elders in the hall didn't have any objections to Bibidan's words. If Lu Yuan could really defeat all the competitors at the age of 6 and become the champion, then his talent would surpass everyone else's since the start of the training camp. Then, he would be worthy of being the disciple of His Holiness the Pontiff. On this day, 2 figures arrived outside the training camp. One was tall, and the other was short. At the entrance of the training camp, a middle-aged man in silver armor was already waiting. "Greetings, Instructor Chris. I've been ordered by His Holiness to send this person into the training camp. This is a letter written by Bishop Philo." The person who came with Lu Yuan handed a letter to the man in silver armor, who was the so-called Instructor Chris. Lu Yuan, 6 years old, from Nodin City, Fastno Province. Martial Soul, Golden Dragon. Rank 15, Assault Type, Soul Master. Soul Ring, 800-year, Demonic Ape. Chris read out word by word. I didn't expect you to be a genius. Chris' tone was flat, but when he said the word genius, there was a hint of mockery in his voice. I'll take him. You can go back first. Chris waved his hand at the man, then turned to Lu Yuan and said, Kid, come with me. In the training camp. Chris' office. Kid, once you've entered the training camp, you have to abide by our rules. I don't care who introduced you, and I don't care who your backer is. Here, you only need to do one thing, and that is to obey orders. Do you understand? Chris said indifferently. Yes, sir. Lu Yuan replied in a firm tone. Very good. Chris clapped his hands and said, Hal, bring him to the dormitory. Tomorrow, the training will officially begin. Yes, instructor. Chris looked at Lu Yuan's back as they left. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly. Someone that His Holiness the Pontiff values? I like to see how capable you are. The training camp was huge, and there were many students. Including the old students, the total number of people was no less than 150. 150 people, but only 10 people were able to make it out in 3 years. It had to be said that this was a cruel ratio. The dormitory building was not far away, and it was huge, so there were many rooms. On average, 2 people could share a dormitory. Back in the days of Notting Academy, there were many people squeezed into a dormitory. There were at least a dozen people. On the second floor, room number 204. Hal stopped in his tracks, took out a key, and handed it to Lu Yuan. He said, This is your dormitory. Someone will send the bedding to you later. Thank you, Uncle Hal. Lu Yuan thanked him politely. It's my duty. There's no need to thank me. I'll take my leave first, Hal said and turned to leave. Uncle Hal, take care. Lu Yuan inserted the key into the lock, turned it slowly, and gently pushed open the door. Chapter 31. Pushing open the door, the room was very spacious. Other than 2 beds, 2 wardrobes, and 2 desks, there was nothing else. The room was very clean, without a speck of dust. It seemed like someone had purposely cleaned it. Of the 2 beds, one had a pile of bedding on it. It was obvious that someone had already lived in it. The other bed was a smooth wooden plank. Lu Yuan knew that this was his bed. Finding a chair to sit on, Lu Yuan put his things away. Although Hal said that he would arrange bedding, he still had to use his own toiletries. The sun was setting. In the blink of an eye, 2 hours had passed since Lu Yuan arrived at the training camp. The training in the training camp had also ended. Who are you? Looking at the small figure in the room, Yuan Xin was a little confused. I'm a new student. My name is Lu Yuan. Looking at the young man at the door, Lu Yuan said, This should be my roommate. New. Looking at Lu Yuan's young face, Yuan Xin's vigilance slowly dropped. Fortunately, he was only a 6 or 7-year-old child. Hello, I'm Yuan Xin. Yuan Xin's personality seemed to be a little cold. After greeting him, he ignored Lu Yuan and sat alone at the side. Lu Yuan was not the kind of person who liked to talk. Since Yuan Xin ignored him, he was too lazy to talk. The entire room fell silent. Dong, dong, dong. There was a knock on the door. Who is it? Is Lu Yuan staying here? This is the bedding that Manager Hal ordered to send over. It was a middle-aged man. I'm Lu Yuan. Thank you, Manager Hal. Lu Yuan said as he took the bedding from the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man nodded and turned to leave. He carried the bedding to his bed and laid it on it. The bedding was very big. It was just right to lay it on the already spacious bed. The soft bedding was very comfortable to the touch, and the quality was not bad. You have a relationship with Manager Hal? Yuan Xin's cold voice sounded. What relationship? Yuan Xin took the initiative to respond, which surprised Lu Yuan. However, his words also made Lu Yuan somewhat puzzled. If it's not related, why would Steward Hal send someone to deliver bedding to you? Doesn't every student have one? Lu Yuan asked. Yuan Xin stared straight at Lu Yuan. Seeing that there was nothing wrong with his expression, he said, The students prepare their own bedding. The training camp doesn't care about these things. Then what is this? Looking at his bedding, Lu Yuan came to a realization. Perhaps instructor Chris and manager Hal had told him something. After all, it was His Holiness the Pope who had ordered him to enter the training camp. Looks like your background isn't small, Yuan Xin said lightly. Lu Yuan was silent for a moment and did not explain. It seemed that no matter where one was, these problems were unavoidable. Even the martial soul palace, one's background was still important. Ordinary people would never receive better treatment. The atmosphere turned cold for a moment. Lu Yuan changed the topic. You've been in the training camp for so long. Is there anything you need to pay attention to in the camp? Yuan Xion's age was between 9 and 10 years old. According to the rules of the training camp, the age of those who joined the Genius Academy could not be older than 7. He had probably been in the training camp for almost 3 years. There aren't many things to pay attention to in the training camp. There are only 2 things to pay attention to in the training camp. Yuan Xion's gaze turned to Lu Yuan. The first thing is training. Every day, the instructor will set different training tasks for different students. No matter how difficult the task is, you must complete it. Otherwise, you will be eliminated. The second thing is the other students. In the training camp, only 10 students will be selected from the Prodigy Selection Competition every 3 years. Therefore, in order to ensure that they advance, many people join forces to form some factions. They specifically target talented students and suppress their growth to ensure that they can advance. The training camp doesn't care about these things. Lu Yuan asked. Yuan Xin sneered. This is a world where the strong preys on the weak. On the contrary, the training camp encourages this kind of behavior. As long as no lives are lost, the training camp is too lazy to care about these things. Then what factions are there in this training camp? Lu Yuan asked. Yuan Xin glanced at Lu Yuan and said, I won't talk about those small factions. There are mainly 4 powerful factions. The strongest is the Winhall. Their leader is Lin Feng. His martial soul is the Ghost Leopard. He is 10 years old this year and is a rank 22 Agility System Soul Grandmaster. He has no less than 20 Soul Masters and is ranked first in terms of overall strength. Next is the Yin Sect. Their leader is Yin Xiang. His martial soul is the Azure Lightning Divine Elephant. He is 10 years old this year and is a rank 21 Soul Grandmaster. He has more than 10 Soul Masters under him and is ranked second. Next is the Qin Sect. Their leader is Qin Yuan. His martial soul is the Purgatory Demon Wolf. He is 10 years old this year and is a rank 21 Soul Grandmaster. He has more than 10 Soul Masters under him and is ranked third. Lastly is the Yinluo Hall. Their leader is Feng Yuyan. Her martial soul is the Purple Yinluo. She is 10 years old and is a rank 21 Soul Grandmaster. The Yinluo Hall only recruits female members and is ranked 4th in terms of overall strength. I am a member of the Yin Sect. Since we are roommates, if you are willing, I can introduce you to our Yin Sect. Yuan Xin said. Thank you for your invitation, but I won't join any faction. Lu Yuan laughed. Are you sure? If a newcomer doesn't have the protection of a faction, they will be bullied by a lot of people. You can't be thinking that you could do whatever you want just because you have a strong background, right? The training camp is a place that pays attention to strength. Of course not. Lu Yuan smiled and said, since I've entered the training camp, everyone in the camp is my competitor. As for those who want to find fault with me, let them come. I'm not someone to be trifled with. You're very confident. I also hope that your strength is as strong as you say. Yuan Xin shook his head. Those who were able to enter the training camp were all geniuses, and geniuses were always arrogant. Like Lu Yuan, who had just entered the training camp, they were all fearless, including him in the past. However, after being taught a lesson by the students in the training camp, they knew the immensity of heaven and earth. Yuan Xin felt that after Lu Yuan was ruthlessly taught a lesson, he would know that the strength he was so proud of was actually nothing in the training camp. At that time, he would learn to be obedient. However, what Yuan Xin didn't know was that his way of thinking was only applicable to ordinary students. Lu Yuan was never an ordinary person. In Yuan Xin's opinion, the students in the training camp might be very powerful, but in Lu Yuan's eyes, they were actually no different from chickens and dogs. When he found out that the strongest in the training camp was only a rank 22 Soul Grandmaster, Lu Yuan had already lost interest in them. He had killed high-level Soul Grandmasters and evil Soul Grandmasters, let alone some of the so-called geniuses in the training camp. He was more interested in the training methods in the genius training camp and hoped that they would satisfy him. Chapter 32. Yuan Xian naturally didn't know about Lu Yuan's thoughts. Otherwise, he would have called him arrogant. Sometimes, a person's perspective determines their thoughts. Since Lu Yuan had rejected his good intentions, Yuan Xian couldn't be bothered. Although they were roommates, they had only met by chance. As the sky slowly darkened, Lu Yuan felt a little hungry. He asked Yuan Xian for the location of the canteen and enjoyed his first dinner in the training camp. The food in the training camp wasn't bad. There were meat, vegetables, and fruits. Every student had a small piece of soul beast meat. It had to be said that the training camp of the Martial Soul Palace was indeed rich and overbearing. After all, soul beast meat was very nutritious, but the price was also very expensive. After dinner, Lu Yuan returned to his dorm and began meditating. The internal strength of the clear chi scripture was constantly circulating in his body. Lu Yuan's strength was also increasing bit by bit. The sun rose, and the earth gradually regained its vitality. For Lu Yuan, today was his first training in the training camp. As the chief instructor of the training camp, Chris had the final say in the training of all the students. Today, your mission is to carry 20 kilograms of weight and run 20 laps around the training camp. Are there any problems? Chris looked straight at Lu Yuan. No problem. One lap around the training camp was only 2 kilometers long. Running 20 laps was only 40 kilometers, and there was no restriction on the use of soul power. This might be a very cruel training for ordinary soul masters, but for Lu Yuan, it was just an appetizer. One had to know that he could wear 100 kilograms of chainmail and run 100 kilometers every morning in Notting Academy. The training camp was just child's play. No problem. Chris smiled. He wanted to see how capable this kid was. Then let's begin, Chris ordered. Lu Yuan's figure ran out. Officer Chris, isn't this training a little too cruel for a 6-year-old child? I looked at Chris. You don't think he can do it? Chris asked. It'll be very difficult. Even if he uses his soul force, it'll be very difficult for him to persist with his small body. Running 40 kilometers while carrying 20 kilograms of weight is very difficult even for those high-ranked soul masters. If it's him, it's unlikely. Hell, you're underestimating him. I think that not only will he be able to run down here, he won't even use his soul power. Chris laughed. How is this possible? Running 40 kilometers while carrying 20 kilograms of weight without using any soul power. This kind of training intensity is something only a few people in the entire training camp can accomplish. However, they're all soul grandmasters, so how is this brat able to do it? Hal was in a bit of disbelief. How about we make a bet? Christian's eyes flickered. If he didn't know Lu Yuan well yesterday, then after this round of investigation, he believed that he understood Lu Yuan well. Lu Yuan was able to kill a soul grandmaster as a soul master. Furthermore, his first soul ring was far beyond the limit of 800 years. His strength wasn't as simple as it seemed on the surface. He had obtained this information from the Martial Soul Hall. As a high-tier soul sage and the chief instructor of the Prodigy training camp, his status wasn't low. Ordinary people might not know the truth about what had happened in Foaming Village, but he knew quite a bit. He also knew why the Pope favored this brat. However, it wasn't that easy to become the champion of the Heavenly Genius Tournament. Those brats were also very talented. Now, I just want to see how capable Lu Yuan was. Lu Yuan didn't know what Chris was thinking, but even if he did, he wouldn't care. This kind of training intensity wasn't enough for Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan maintained a constant speed. In less than half an hour, he had already completed 5 laps. How is this brat so fast? But this kind of speed consumes a lot of stamina. Chris shook his head. In his opinion, Lu Yuan hadn't thought about the distribution of stamina at all. At this rate, he would run out of stamina after a few more laps. He couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Instructor Chris, it looks like you're going to lose. Hal had trained many students before. Lu Yuan was too fast. He wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Another half an hour passed. Lu Yuan had already completed 10 laps. This brat doesn't seem to have slowed down at all. He's already done 10 laps. Chris was a little surprised. Maybe his endurance is better. But if he keeps going like this, it'll be useless no matter how good his endurance is. He won't be able to hold on after a few more laps. Hal still wasn't optimistic about Lu Yuan. Another half an hour passed. By this time, Lu Yuan had already completed 15 laps. Furthermore, his speed hadn't slowed down at all. It looks like we were blind. This brat isn't simple. Chris knew that he had underestimated Lu Yuan's steady pace. How is this possible? This is impossible. How could a rank 15 Soul Master have such stamina? Hal couldn't believe it. After 17 laps, Lu Yuan's speed still hadn't changed. After 18 laps, Chris was pleasantly surprised. Hal's mouth was wide open. After 19 laps, Chris's eyes were shining brightly. Hal's eyes were filled with disbelief. Finally, after 20 laps, Lu Yuan increased his speed like a galloping horse. His speed shocked Chris and Hal, as well as the other students in the training field. How many laps has this brat completed? A sturdy youth asked a purple-clothed youth beside him. 20 laps. The purple-clothed youth's face was filled with astonishment. Looking at the chainmail on his back, it should be around 20 kilograms. To be able to run 20 laps while carrying 20 kilograms of weight without slowing down, this brat isn't simple. He's not simple, but he should have used his soul power. The purple-clothed youth asked. That's for sure. If he didn't use his soul power, even I wouldn't be able to run 20 laps while carrying 20 kilograms of weight. Even so, this brat is still very strong. The sturdy youth said, Yuan Xian, if I remember correctly, this brat is in the same dorm as you. What do you think of recruiting him to our Yama sect? It turned out that the purple-clothed youth was Lu Yuan's roommate, Yuan Xian. Boss, I've already invited him, but he rejected. Yuan Xian smiled bitterly as he repeated what Lu Yuan had said yesterday. This brat has some backbone. Interesting. Yin Xiang, like him. The sturdy youth was the leader of the Yama sect, Yin Xiang. But I think that Qin Yuan has already noticed this brat. This brat's methods are despicable. Remind him to be careful, Yin Xiang said as he looked at the red-clothed youth not far away. Yes, boss. Yuan Xian nodded. Chapter 33. Among the four powers, the Wind Hall was the strongest. Their leader, Lin Feng, was a rank 22 Soul Grandmaster. He was the strongest in the entire training camp, and no one dared to provoke him. And as the number one expert, he would usually disdain to bully other students. Next was Yin Xiang. The Yin school was ranked second, slightly stronger than Qin Yuan's Qin sect. Yin Xiang himself was also stronger than Qin Yuan. Yin Xiang was a straightforward man. He only admired the strong and disdained to bully the weak. Qin Yuan was different. Just like his purgatory demon wolf, he was filled with the nature of a wolf. He bullied the weak and feared the strong. He bullied talented students and had a bad reputation in the entire training camp. However, his strength was extraordinary, and he had a power like the Qin sect in his hands. Even Yin Xiang and Lin Feng were unwilling to provoke him. Therefore, he could be said to be unstoppable in the training camp. Some of the scattered students and small groups were often bullied by him. And now, he had seen Lu Yuan's performance. With Qin Yuan's personality, he might make a move on Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan naturally didn't know about this. But even if he knew, Lu Yuan wouldn't put such a clown in his eyes. After running 20 laps, Lu Yuan's forehead was covered in sweat. Chris looked at Lu Yuan in surprise. It seemed that he had underestimated this kid. Lu Yuan, did you really not use your soul force? Hal looked at Lu Yuan from the side, a trace of shock in his eyes that had not yet disappeared. No, Lu Yuan said. It was only 40 kilometers. He didn't need to use his soul power. That's all for today's training. Tomorrow, I will arrange for you to practice. You can go back now. Although Chris was shocked, he was still a soul sage. He had seen a lot and quickly reacted. Yes, instructor. Lu Yuan didn't object. After running 40 kilometers, although he wasn't very tired, he was still sweating. It was uncomfortable to have sweat sticking to his body. It was better to go back to the dormitory to wash up and change his clothes. Lu Yuan slowly left. Chris suddenly laughed. What are you laughing at, Instructor Chris? Hal was puzzled. Huh, ever since the last golden generation left, I haven't met such a monster student for a long time. Interesting, I like to see how strong this kid is. Chris's eyes flashed with a glimmer of light. In tomorrow's training, let's have Lu Yuan fight against Qin Tian. Let's see how his actual combat ability is. Although Lu Yuan had the achievement of killing a Soul Grandmaster, that was because he was caught off guard. From Chris's point of view, that was not enough to prove Lu Yuan's true strength. As for Qin Tian, who is second only to those few in the training camp, he might be able to force out Lu Yuan's true strength. Against Qin Tian. Qin Tian is a rank 19 Spirit Master, only a step away from becoming a Spirit Grandmaster. Lu Yuan is only 6 years old. How could he be his opponent? Although Lu Yuan's physical fitness had shocked Hal, physical fitness did not equate to strength. Hal was not optimistic about Lu Yuan's chances. That's not necessarily true. Let's wait and see. Christian's interest was piqued. At first, he was curious because Lu Yuan was sent here by the order of the Pope. Now, he was curious because of Lu Yuan himself. The feeling of sweat sticking to his clothes was not comfortable. Lu Yuan returned to the dormitory, took a shower, and changed into a new set of clothes. Immediately, he felt as if his whole body had come alive. The sun was shining brightly. After taking a shower, Lu Yuan rubbed his stomach and walked toward the cafeteria. The morning training had already ended. The training camp students were all eating in the cafeteria. When Lu Yuan arrived at the cafeteria, there were already many people there. After ordering a few dishes that he liked to eat, Lu Yuan took a plate and looked around, preparing to find an empty seat. Here, Lu Yuan. A voice sounded. The voice was cold, but it was familiar. Lu Yuan looked over. A young man in a purple shirt was waving at him. It was his roommate, Yuan Xin. At this moment, there were 2 other people beside Yuan Xin. The 3 of them were quite close to each other. Presumably, they were from the Yama sect. Although he did not like to join any forces and felt that it was too childish, he would feel embarrassed to reject Yuan Xin's invitation. He took the plate and walked towards Yuan Xin. Ta. The cafeteria was originally quite lively. However, after Yuan Xin's shout, the entire cafeteria became quiet. In the huge cafeteria, Lu Yuan's footsteps could be heard clearly. This is the kid from this morning? A young man in red clothes at a table not far from Yuan Xin said. That's the kid, Boss Qin. I heard that this kid is in the same dormitory as Yuan Xin. This Boss Qin was the so-called Qin Yuan, Yuan Xin's roommate. Looks like this kid is going to join the Yama sect. Qin Yuan looked at Lu Yuan with an unfriendly gaze. Boss Qin, do you want me to teach him a lesson? A yellow-haired boy beside Qin Yuan said. All right, Li Ji, then you go and test this kid. Qin Yuan's mouth curled into a sinister smile. All right, boss. Li Ji chuckled and left his seat. Yo, this little brother looks unfamiliar. How should I address you? Lu Yuan was walking when a figure suddenly blocked his path. Lu Yuan raised his head. His gaze was indifferent as he said, Senior, is there a problem? Our boss Qin invites you over. Why? Do you want to give him face? Li Ji said. Sorry, my friend is waiting for me. Lu Yuan shook his head and refused. Who knows who your boss is? Kid, our boss Qin invites you over because he thinks highly of you. Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Li Ji lowered his head slightly and said fiercely, Ha! Lu Yuan chuckled. I like to be forced to drink a forfeit. Why? Do you have any advice for me? Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Li Ji's eyes narrowed. Kid, you're the one asking for it. He clenched his fist and punched towards Lu Yuan's chest. Li Ji, you dare. On the other side, Yuan Xin, who had been paying attention, saw Li Ji's action and immediately shouted. Tisk! Hearing Yuan Xin's voice, Li Ji's heart was filled with disdain. With Boss Chin's support, he was just a new student. What did he not dare to do? This punch was extremely fast and powerful. In Li Ji's opinion, it was enough to seriously injure Lu Yuan. Pa! Just as Li Ji's punch was about to hit Lu Yuan, a palm tightly blocked Li Ji's fist. No matter how much strength Li Ji used, he was unable to take even half a step forward. At the same time, a soft voice sounded. "Is this your fist?" What a disappointment. Li Ji raised his head to look, only to see an indifferent face with some coldness. Chapter 34. Is this your fist? It's slow and weak. Lu Yuan's lips curled into a disdainful smile. Are you a girl? Brat, you dare to insult me? Li Ji was enraged when he heard Lu Yuan's words. Eat my fist. How could Li Ji endure being called a girl? He exploded on the spot. This time, he used all of his strength without being possessed by his martial spirit. Pa! Just like before, he casually waved his hand and blocked Li Ji's full-strength punch. Seems like you're not that good. Lu Yuan held the plate in his left hand and grabbed Li Ji's fist with his right. How is this possible? Li Ji couldn't believe that his fist was grabbed by Lu Yuan. He tried to pull it back, but it didn't move at all. Go! He lightly kicked Li Ji's chest. Li Ji was directly kicked a few meters away and fainted on the spot. Hiss! Seeing Lu Yuan's actions, the students in the cafeteria were all shocked. This brat looked small, but his methods were quite fierce. Li Ji! A crashing sound was heard. It was the sound of a chair being knocked away. Brat, you're courting death. A red-clothed youth walked over. He was followed by more than 10 youths. It was obvious that this red-clothed youth was the leader of this group. You must be the bullshit Boss Chin that guy was talking about. Lu Yuan smiled disdainfully and said, If you want to cause trouble, do it yourself. You only know how to hide in a corner and scheme. That's just a trick that a coward would use. Brat, you've got guts. Qin Yuan was so angry that he laughed. I've always been bold, Lu Yuan said with a smile, especially when it comes to some crazy dogs. I like to beat them to death. He wasn't a fool. The reason Li Ji came out to stir up trouble was because of Qin Yuan's machinations. Through Yuan Xian's words and his own conjecture, Lu Yuan had already figured out the cause of this incident. So, he naturally wouldn't be polite to Qin Yuan. How dare you call me a mad dog? Qin Yuan was enraged. His martial spirit was the purgatory demon wolf. He hated it when people called him a dog. I didn't say that. You assumed it yourself. Lu Yuan spread his hands, indicating that he had nothing to do with it. Stinking brat, you're courting death. Qin Yuan clenched his fists tightly and launched an attack. This punch was accompanied by a fierce gust of wind. No one could have thought that Qin Yuan would actually take the initiative to attack. Many people were worried for Lu Yuan. Qin Yuan was one of the top 3 experts in the training camp. As a newcomer, Lu Yuan was afraid that he would suffer a great loss. Ha! Lu Yuan chuckled and threw out a punch as well. Under the pitiful gazes of the surrounding people, the 2 fists collided. Bang! Their fists collided, producing a crisp sound. Ta-ta-ta! Lu Yuan retreated 3 steps before stabilizing himself. He had only used 50% of his strength in that punch, but he didn't expect Qin Yuan's strength to be so strong. Caught off guard, he actually retreated 3 steps. Qin Yuan, on the other hand, retreated 7 steps before stabilizing himself. Clenching his fists tightly, Qin Yuan's expression was a little ugly. The strength of that punch was so strong that it was difficult for him to resist. Even now, his palms were still a little numb. Wah! The entire cafeteria was in an uproar. Lu Yuan actually had the upper hand in that punch. Although Qin Yuan didn't use his martial spirit, Lu Yuan didn't either. Who would have thought that not only was Lu Yuan not injured, but he also repelled Qin Yuan? This brat, Yuan Xian's eyes widened. He didn't expect his roommate to have such ability. This is interesting. Yin Xiang's eyes lit up. He was a typical strength type, soul master, and revered strength the most. Lu Yuan was able to repel Qin Yuan just now, and the strength of that punch had piqued Yin Xiang's interest. One had to know that although Qin Yuan's purgatory demon wolf wasn't a strength-type martial spirit, its soul power was still very high. Furthermore, it was a beast martial spirit. The power of that punch wasn't small, and Lu Yuan was able to withstand it without any injuries. His strength was definitely not to be underestimated. However, what Yin Xiang didn't know was that the punch just now was purely strength. Lu Yuan didn't use any soul power, otherwise, Qin Yuan wouldn't have been able to withstand it. Brat, you've angered me. Qin Yuan's expression changed. Purgatory demon wolf possession. Raging flames appeared, and the air seemed to become scorching hot. A giant wolf covered in flames appeared behind Qin Yuan. It was his martial spirit, the purgatory demon wolf. Below Qin Yuan's body, two yellow soul rings shone brightly. Oh! Qin Yuan roared as he glared at Lu Yuan. His green eyes shone with a ferocious light. Lu Yuan focused his gaze. He placed his plate down gently with his left hand and prepared to summon his martial spirit. Just as Lu Yuan was about to summon his martial spirit, a voice rang out. Qin Yuan, what's the point of bullying a new student? Why don't we spar? Lu Yuan's eyebrows twitched, and he dispersed the soul power in his hand. Yin Xiang, it's you? Qin Yuan's expression turned ugly. Why? Are you going to stand up for this brat? Yin Xiang laughed. I feel like old friends with this little brother, and I want to be friends. I can't let you bully him. Yin Xiang wasn't lying. He was very interested in Lu Yuan's strength. His intuition told him that this wasn't the full extent of this brat's strength. However, strength wasn't absolute strength. From Yin Xiang's point of view, Lu Yuan wasn't weak, but he wasn't Qin Yuan's match. That was why he stepped in to stop Qin Yuan. When he saw Yin Xiang and the students beside him, Qin Yuan knew that Lu Yuan's strength wasn't inferior to theirs. If they continued, both sides would be injured, and others would benefit. It was better to stop now. After all, there was plenty of time to deal with this brat in the future. Since you've spoken, I'll give you face. Qin Yuan turned to Lu Yuan with a ferocious expression. Brat, today's matter isn't over yet. I'll be waiting. Lu Yuan didn't care about Qin Yuan's words. He never said anything harsh. He usually attacked people on the spot. Only incompetent people like to say such things. Let's go. Qin Yuan waved his hand, and a large group of people followed behind him. They left the canteen in a grandiose manner. Of course, they also carried the unconscious little yellow hair away. Thank you, senior. Lu Yuan thanked Yin Xiang. Even though Lu Yuan was not afraid of Qin Yuan, Yin Xiang was willing to help him, and he had to accept this favor. No need. You're little Xian's friend, so you're my friend. This is nothing. Yin Xiang chuckled. Lu Yuan couldn't help but smile. Just like what Yuan Xian said, Yin Xiang was quite forthright. Brother Lu, let's eat together. Since Qin Yuan and his group left, the canteen is much quieter. It's time to eat, Yin Xiang said. Lu Yuan nodded. He took his plate and sat down at the table. The group of people started to talk. Chapter 35. Yin Xiang was indeed a forthright man. Lu Yuan had a good impression of him. After the meal, Lu Yuan returned to the dormitory and began to meditate. He had to be meticulous in his cultivation, so he would not waste a single bit of his cultivation time. In a training camp, the news of Lu Yuan and Qin Yuan's fight spread. Soon, all the trainees in the training camp knew that there was a new trainee named Lu Yuan. This kid is quite interesting. What happened in the cafeteria could not be hidden from the head instructor, Chris. Lu Yuan was able to defeat Qin Yuan. Although it was said that he was not possessed by a martial spirit, Lu Yuan was only 6 years old. This was already very commendable. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's actual combat drill more and more, Chris murmured with a smile on his face. Hal, who was standing beside Chris, couldn't help but nod when he heard Chris's words. After training so many students, only Lu Yuan could give him such a strange feeling. It was as if he was born different from others. Every time Hal thought that he could not do it, Lu Yuan's performance would break his understanding. From running with weights in the morning to defeating Qin Yuan in the afternoon, it was all out of Hal's expectations. Maybe tomorrow, this kid can really defeat Qin Tian. Hal's thoughts unconsciously changed. Originally, he believed that Qin Tian would win, but now, the balance in his heart was leaning towards Lu Yuan. What a strange kid. Room 204, Lu Yuan's dormitory. Yuan Xin looked at Lu Yuan with a burning gaze. I didn't expect you to have some strength. You really surprised me. Lu Yuan smiled. If I didn't have some ability, I wouldn't have come here. That's true. Yuan Xin affirmed Lu Yuan's words. Generally speaking, those who are willing to join the genius training camp are not ordinary people. Don't underestimate that Li Ji from this afternoon. That guy is also a ruthless person. Is that so? Lu Yuan laughed. I really couldn't tell. He didn't put Li Ji's strength in his eyes. Indeed, Li Ji's strength is not enough for you. However, Qin Yuan and the others are not to be trifled with. Tomorrow, you might be in trouble. Yuan Xin said. I'd like to hear the details. Yuan Xin gently turned around, picked up the teacup, and took a sip before slowly saying, Do you know the rules of the training camp? I don't think you know. Without waiting for Lu Yuan to answer, Yuan Xin continued. There is an unwritten rule in the training camp that every new trainee cannot avoid, and that is the test of strength. Generally speaking, it is divided into 3 aspects. The first is the physique, the second is the actual combat practice, and the third is the mental test. All new students must go through these 3 stages. The instructors will estimate the new student's overall strength based on the results and performance of these 3 stages, and then decide on the next training course. Then what did I experience this morning? You went through physique training in the morning. I can tell that your physique is very good. Recalling Lu Yuan's strong physique in the morning, Yuan Xin was also somewhat shocked. So you're saying that I'll have to face a combat drill tomorrow? Lu Yuan immediately reacted. Yes. Yuan Xin nodded and said, every new trainee will definitely face an old trainee, and the choice of the old trainee is decided by the head instructor. If it was before with your strength, this test wouldn't be too hard. However, after what happened this afternoon, I can imagine that your opponent tomorrow will definitely not be simple. Will it be one of the 4 great experts? Lu Yuan asked. For him, the only ones in the entire training camp that could pique his interest were the 4 Soul Grandmasters. That won't be the case. Yuan Xin gave Lu Yuan a strange look and said, The 4 great experts are all Soul Grandmasters. The head instructor won't arrange a match with such a great disparity in strength. However, it is very likely that it will be a high-level Soul Grandmaster. Moreover, in order to ensure that you can display your full strength, there is a high chance that the instructor will arrange a trainee who has a conflict with you. If you consider it all, this old trainee is very likely to be one of Qin Yuan's people. After all, the 2 of you had a conflict this afternoon, so they definitely won't show you any mercy. Is that so? Lu Yuan smiled faintly and said, Then I'm quite looking forward to it. Don't underestimate the strength of Qin Yuan's subordinates. You are indeed very strong, but strength doesn't equate to strength. If you can't hit someone, no matter how strong you are, it will be useless. Yuan Xin warned. Then you mean that I might face an agility-type Soul Grandmaster tomorrow? Lu Yuan laughed. It is very likely. Qin Yuan has a few strong agility-type Soul Grandmasters, and the strongest among them should be Qin Yuan's younger brother, Qin Tian. This guy's martial soul is a variant martial soul, the Wind Wolf. This martial soul is extremely fast. In the training camp, Qin Tian's speed is only second to Lin Feng. He's a very dangerous guy. If you meet him tomorrow, then it will be too dangerous for you. Yuan Xin said with a solemn expression. Qin Tian, martial soul, the Wind Wolf. Lu Yuan muttered to himself. Then he suddenly asked, What is his rank? Rank 19 Soul Grandmaster. He is only a step away from becoming a Soul Grandmaster. Rank 19. He should be a good opponent to establish my prestige. Lu Yuan muttered softly. What did you say? Lu Yuan's voice was very soft, and Yuan Xin couldn't hear it clearly. Nothing. Lu Yuan laughed and said, Thank you for your reminder. Otherwise, I might have been caught unprepared. No matter what Yuan Xion's intentions were, but his actions were enough to make Lu Yuan feel grateful. That's not necessary. After all, you were targeted by Qin Yuan because of me. Just treat it as my compensation. Yuan Xin waved his hand and said, "You should prepare yourself. If you can't beat him, don't force yourself. Just admit defeat. No one will laugh at you." Yuan Xin said, "Okay, I know." Lu Yuan smiled faintly. 606, Qin Yuan's dormitory. As one of the 4 great experts of the training camp and the leader of the Qin sect, Qin Yuan had many henchmen. They filled up the entire dormitory. "Brother, just now, manager has sent a letter. That brat's actual combat practice opponent tomorrow is me." Beside Qin Yuan, a gray-clothed youth said, "Is that true?" Li Ji, who had already woken up, cheered and said, "Then we can properly take care of that brat tomorrow." Being kicked unconscious by Lu Yuan in front of everyone made him lose face in front of the entire training camp. Li Ji's heart was already filled with resentment towards Lu Yuan. "Is that so? That's great." Qin Yuan smiled sinisterly and said, "Then tomorrow's practice, you better not go easy on him. Fiercely train that brat. I want him to know the cruel consequences of offending me." Qin Yuan, "Don't worry, brother. I will let him know what is cruel." The gray-clothed youth's mouth hooked up into a sinister smile. Chapter 36. The sun rose, and the purple clouds dissipated. A new day had arrived. Today's training camp was exceptionally lively. What Lu Yuan did not expect was that there was no training today. Instead, all the trainees were gathered on the training ground, standing in different camps. Other than the scattered trainees, the remaining 4 camps were the most conspicuous. Lu Yuan walked alone on the training ground, looking around. Of the 4 camps, Lu Yuan had already met 2 of the leaders. One was Yin Xiang, and the other was Qin Yuan, with whom he had an unpleasant experience. Lu Yuan smiled at Yin Xiang. He had a good impression of this straightforward young man. As for Qin Yuan's unfriendly glances, Lu Yuan chose to ignore them. The leaders of the remaining 2 camps were the remaining 2 of the 4 experts in the training camp. Feng Yuyin, ranked 4th, and Lin Feng, ranked 1st. Feng Yuyin was wearing a long purple dress. Her jade-like cheeks exuded a faint, seductive charm. She had a head of beautiful purple hair, and her skin was whiter than snow. Lin Feng, on the other hand, was dressed in black. His appearance was not outstanding, but rather ordinary. However, he had an indifferent temperament, which made him stand out from the crowd. In this training camp, Lin Feng's status had always been high. Looking at Lin Feng carefully, Lu Yuan narrowed his eyes. This was the first time he felt threatened in the training camp. Lin Feng? Interesting. Lu Yuan whispered and walked towards Yin Xiang. Is this the Lu Yuan who has been the talk of the camp? He's quite a character. When Lu Yuan noticed Lin Feng also noticed him. With his sharp senses, he immediately felt the faint sense of danger from Lu Yuan. It seemed that this kid who had just entered the training camp was quite extraordinary. "Little brother Lu Yuan, you're here." Yin Xiang laughed and patted Lu Yuan's shoulder. "Old brother Yin Xiang, aren't we training in the training camp today? Why are there so many people surrounding us?" Lu Yuan asked, "Isn't today your actual combat practice? You don't know this, but every time there's a drill like this, the instructor will let everyone watch. That's why he doesn't assign any tasks today," said Yin Xiang. "Is that so?" Lu Yuan nodded. "Hee, come little brother Lu Yuan. Let me introduce you to our brothers from the Yama sect." Yin Xiang was very enthusiastic as he introduced everyone to Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan returned their greetings one by one. It could be considered that they had become familiar with each other. Soon, the chief instructor arrived. Chris stood in the center of the training ground and looked at the students. He said in a serious voice, "Students, we don't have a training mission today. However, there is a battle that we need you to witness." Lu Yuan stepped forward. Hearing Christian's voice, Lu Yuan walked out and stopped less than 2 meters away from Christian. He turned around and looked at the crowd. "This student is Lu Yuan. He's a new student. Perhaps you don't know him yet. But that's not important." Christian continued, "I believe that from today onwards, all of you will know him According to the training camp's rules, every new student has to go through a combat practice with the old students. Today is Lu Yuan's combat practice. I hope that not only will Lu Yuan grow stronger in this combat practice, but I also hope that all of you will learn more from today's combat practice. Now, let the actual combat exercise begin. Chris commanded. For today's combat practice, Lu Yuan's opponent is the agility type Soul Master Qin Tian. Student Qin Tian, please enter. As the manager of the training ground, Hao continued after Christian gave the order. Little Tian. Looking at Qin Tian, Qin Yuan made a throat-slitting gesture. Qin Tian's lips curled and he mouthed, "Don't worry." Lu Yuan was 6 years old and 2 meters tall. Qin Tian was 10 years old and 5 meters tall. When the two of them stood together, Qin Tian was more than a head taller than Lu Yuan. Qin Tian, 10 years old. Martial Spirit, Wind Wolf. Rank 19, 1 ring, Agility type, Soul Master. Lu Yuan, 6 years old. Martial Spirit, Golden Dragon. Rank 15, 1 ring, Agility type, Soul Master. Rank 15? Hearing Lu Yuan's voice, the training ground was filled with exclamations. Reaching rank 15 at the age of 6, he was a genius among geniuses. Rank 15, Yin Xiang laughed. This kid is indeed not simple. I thought he would at most be rank 11. Yuan Xia nodded. Reaching rank 15 at the age of 6 was a bit exaggerated. He was already 8 when he reached rank 15. Rank 15 looks like he has innate full soul power. Not far from Yin Xiang and the others, Feng Yin blinked her beautiful eyes and said, "Innate full soul power." Lin Feng's eyes flickered as he stared at Lu Yuan in the center of the training ground. Damn it. Different from the others, Qin Yuan's face turned ugly. What others could think of, he could naturally think of as well. His innate soul power was only rank 8. The reason he was able to become a soul grandmaster at the age of 10 was all thanks to a spirit herb given by his family. Looking at Lu Yuan in front of him, he might be able to become a soul grandmaster before the age of 9. This made the narrow-minded Qin Yuan even more jealous. Qin Yuan seemed to have imagined the scene of Lu Yuan being crippled by Qin Tian, and a sinister smile hung on his face. But little Tian is already rank 19. So what if he is a genius? He will still be destroyed by little Tian. Rank 15. Qin Tian's gaze turned sharp. A rank 15 dragon-type soul master would definitely not be weak. However, looking at his martial spirits type, his weakness should be his speed. To Qin Tian, who had been in the training camp for 3 years, he still had this kind of insight. Windwolf. Lu Yuan's soul power revolved, and the image of a golden dragon appeared behind him. The yellow soul ring with traces of purple suede. Martial spirit possession. What a strong martial spirit's pressure. Qin Tian's gaze became more and more serious. Lu Yuan's soul power was obviously lower than his, but the pressure of his martial spirit made his wind wolf somewhat fearful. I can't continue like this. Qin Tian's figure rushed towards Lu Yuan. His figure was like a running wolf, extremely fast. Lu Yuan stood motionless, and Qin Tian's figure slowly enlarged in his eyes. Shua! Qin Tian's wolf claw attacked. Lu Yuan's body moved slightly to the side, and the wolf claw slashed across his face. So, a whip kick missed. Before Lu Yuan's leg could reach him, Qin Tian's figure had already disappeared. Good. Not far away. Qin Yuan cheered loudly. This should be the way to fight. Qin Tian smiled slightly. Sure enough, it was as he thought. Lu Yuan's weakness was his speed. Qin Tian increased his speed, and his whole body turned into a gray shadow. His sharp and tough wolf claws continuously clawed towards Lu Yuan's neck and waist. Once again, his kick missed. Lu Yuan smiled lightly, and a trace of indifference appeared on his face. Is this your speed? I think it's just SOSO. Her pair of beautiful eyes stared at Lu Yuan, emitting a strong sense of curiosity. Damn it! On Qin Yuan's side, the situation was completely different. Even if you beat him to death, he would never have thought that Qin Tian would be defeated so easily by Lu Yuan. Moreover, Lu Yuan's strength and speed made him feel a sense of crisis. This kind of Lu Yuan already had the strength to threaten him. If this continued, this brat might become a threat to him in the selection 3 months later. Qin Yuan's expression was ugly. His eyes were filled with resentment as he looked at Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan naturally didn't care. The enmity between him and Qin Yuan came out of nowhere. In the end, it was just Qin Yuan looking for trouble and taking the initiative to provoke him. Looking at Qin Yuan's eyes, he secretly laughed in his heart. To him, Qin Yuan was just a stepping stone. He didn't have the qualifications to be in his heart. The competition has ended. Lu Yuan wins. Hal announced the end of the competition. Seeing Lu Yuan's calm appearance, Hal couldn't help but secretly nod. This brat was indeed different from ordinary people. This competition was still won by him. Chapter 38. Contrary to everyone's expectations, Lu Yuan actually won the match between Lu Yuan and Qin Tian. This made many people sigh. The competition in the training camp was already very strong. Only 10 people could successfully walk out of the training camp. Now that Lu Yuan had come, it could be said that he was a fierce dragon crossing the river. This way, there was one less place for them to compete for. This situation was not only limited to the ordinary students. Even the 4 strongest soul grandmasters in the training camp were full of fear of Lu Yuan. Unlike the ordinary students, they were not competing for the 10 places that could successfully leave, but for the top 3. This was because only the top 3 were qualified to enter the Pontus Palace. Originally, it was only the 4 of them competing. But now Lu Yuan's strength had undoubtedly made them put Lu Yuan in the competition. Lu Yuan naturally did not care about their opinions. He had only come to the training camp for 2 things. The first was to improve himself, and the second was to win the championship. As for other things, he had no interest and was too lazy to care. However, it was necessary to occasionally show off his muscles. At least after defeating Qin Tian, Qin Yuan's people no longer dared to cause trouble for him, which made him a lot more relaxed. Now, when he went to eat in the cafeteria, those people looked at him and hid far away in fear. He could not help but think of the time when he was in Nodding Academy. Those students were also afraid of him. He leisurely spent a few more days in the training camp, experiencing the training courses of the training camp. He had to admit that the training in the training camp was indeed very scientific, and the results were great. Moreover, Chris seemed to be competing with him. Every time he trained, he would definitely be there and quietly watch. His face was very rich, and Lu Yuan could not help but feel a chill. Not long after a week in the training camp, Lu Yuan ushered in the 3rd test. This was the so-called spiritual test, which was to test his willpower. The test of willpower this time was to resist Chris's pressure for an incense sticks time. As a high-level soul sage, Chris's pressure was definitely a very difficult test for Lu Yuan, who was only at rank 15. This test was very good because it could test Lu Yuan's limits, and it would not cause any harm to Lu Yuan's body. The results of the test were also very shocking to Chris. Generally speaking, if an assault-type soul master could resist pressure equivalent to 2/3 of their rank, they would be considered not bad. If they could resist pressure equivalent to their rank, they would be considered a true genius. If they could resist pressure that exceeded their rank, they would be considered a monster. They were far from being measured by the eyes of ordinary people. Lu Yuan was only at rank 15, but he had to resist pressure equal to rank 35 before he reached his limit, which was 20 ranks higher than his rank. This result shocked Chris on the spot. This not only showed that Lu Yuan's physique was very good, but his willpower was also very strong. After all, Lu Yuan was relying on his willpower to hold on until the end. Lu Yuan's gains were also not small. Under Chris's pressure, his soul force that was already at its limit broke through again. Lu Yuan was now a rank 16 soul master, and there were still more than 4 months before he turned 7. After the 3 tests were over, Chris tailored a training program for Lu Yuan. The difficulty and volume of the training program left some of the spectators dumbfounded. Even Yin Xiang, who was a Soul Grandmaster, was shocked. At the same time, an unknown scene was playing out in the Pontiff's palace. Bibi Dan sat on the throne, holding a scepter in her hand. She was graceful and elegant, and her might was fully displayed. Her eyebrows were long and slender, and her skin was sparkling and translucent. Her jade-like face was as beautiful as a picture scroll. If there was a phrase that could cause the downfall of a city, then she was the best portrayal of this phrase. In the Martial Soul Palace, she was like a flower, but in the Martial Soul Palace, she was the most capable pontiff in the history of the Martial Soul Palace. Chris, how was his performance? Bibi Dan asked softly. Chris knelt on one knee, his originally arrogant head lowered. Reporting to your majesty, Lu Yuan is a true genius. Chris then reported in detail about Lu Yuan's performance in the training camp. Is that so? After listening to Chris's report, Bibi Dan asked softly, do you think he can become the champion? If nothing unexpected happens, he can? Chris's tone was very certain. After a series of tests, no one knew Lu Yuan's strength better than he did. In a one-on-one battle, no one in the entire training camp was his opponent, including Lin Feng and the other 3 Soul Grandmasters. This time, I need you to change the way the battles are going to be. Change the way the battles are going to be fought? Please instruct me, your majesty. Chris was a little puzzled. This time, in addition to the matches in the early stages after the semifinals, the championship will be changed to a challenge match. Lu Yuan will be the one being challenged, and he will have to fight 3 people at the same time. Your majesty, what do you mean? Chris was a little helpless. He was a little confused about Bibidan's thoughts. Only the strongest person is worthy to be my disciple, Bibi Dan said faintly. Hiss. After hearing Bibidan's words, Chris was shocked. It seemed that His Majesty wanted to accept Lu Yuan as his disciple. This tournament was a test for Lu Yuan. Yes, your majesty. You can go now, Bibi Dan said faintly. Yes, your majesty. Chris walked out of the pontiff's palace. He was still a little dazed, and he was shocked by Bibidan's words. After Chris left, the pontiff's palace immediately became empty. Bibidan's eyes were filled with an indescribable color. Lu Yuan, oh Lu Yuan, don't disappoint me. Bibidan's gaze turned in the direction of the Douluo palace. There was deep resentment in her eyes as she muttered to herself, 6-winged angels, I will definitely destroy you. Ever since that incident, she hated the Martial Soul Palace and the angels to the core. She would destroy them for the rest of her life. The legendary golden dragon Martial Soul that is comparable to the 6-winged angels. Let me see your true strength. Bibidan's eyes were like swords. They seemed to have transcended time and space as he stared at Lu Yuan. 3 Soul Grandmasters should be able to force him to use his true strength. Time flowed like water, and 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. During these 3 months, Lu Yuan's training had shocked the entire training camp. No one knew what was wrong with Chris's head, but his training for Lu Yuan had become even more intense. Even with Lu Yuan's willpower, he almost couldn't persevere. Of course, after the training, the rewards were also considerable. During these 3 months, Lu Yuan had undergone a metamorphosis. Even though his soul power was still at rank 16, his strength and physical attributes had all improved significantly. He was much stronger than he was 3 months ago, and all of this had been brought about by these 3 months of training. Chapter 39. It was also because of this that Lu Yuan did not resent Chris's strict and almost cruel training. Instead, he was full of gratitude. Only strict training could sharpen a firm will. In these 3 months, Lu Yuan's willpower had long been as hard as steel. After 3 months, the Prodigy Tournament was approaching. The atmosphere of the entire training camp suddenly became particularly solemn. For many of the students, the 3 years of hard work in the training camp was all for the sake of this selection competition. The winner would naturally be endlessly happy, but the loser was doomed to waste 3 years. Sometimes, competition was so cruel and fierce. For Lu Yuan, he did not have any special thoughts about the Prodigy tournament because he believed in his own strength. In the entire training camp, he was probably the only one who could face the tournament so easily. Yuan Xen, who was in the same dormitory as him, was obviously more silent these days. He spent a lot of time every day on cultivation. His talent was not outstanding, barely above average in this training camp. However, it would be very difficult for him to fight for a place in the top 10. Yuan Xian's martial soul was the purple jade bamboo, a plant-type martial soul. He walked the path of the control type, and his soul power was around rank 18. At this age and rank, he could be considered an absolute genius outside. However, in the training camp where the strong were like clouds, he was somewhat not so outstanding. The purple jade bamboo was considered a relatively outstanding martial soul in the plant type. Yuan Xian's innate soul power was also at rank 8. However, there are almost no weak martial souls in this training camp. The innate soul power of the students was generally not weak, and there were even students with full innate soul power. Yuan Xian's hard work was a normal thing. As the saying goes, sharpening one's spear at the last minute will not be fast. Thinking back to his previous life, when he faced the college entrance exam, he was also very nervous, so he could understand Yuan Xian's behavior. As for Qin Yuan, who was at odds with Lu Yuan, these days he had calmed down a lot. Presumably, he was also preparing for the Prodigy tournament. After all, although his strength was top-notch in the training camp, there were several people who were not weaker than him. It would be quite difficult for him to enter the top 3. However, no matter how much everyone prepared, the Prodigy tournament was still coming. At this moment, the training ground had already undergone some renovations. 4 rings stood tall on the large training ground, and they had been specially constructed by Chris. There were more than 150 students in the entire training camp, but not all of them had to participate in the selection. For some of the 6 to 7-year-old students, their stage was the next batch. As for Lu Yuan, he was a special case. The other students were all recruited at the same time. He was the only one who was sent in halfway, so he was the youngest in the entire training camp. All in all, there were about 120 students participating in the preliminaries. They were divided into groups according to their arenas. Each arena had 32 people, and the top 4 would be chosen. The last 4 arenas would then be filled with 16 people to decide the final 10 places and the top 3. As for the division of the students, it wasn't just randomly drawn. It had to be discussed by the instructors and stewards before it was rationally divided according to the performance of the students. This was to prevent strong contestants from meeting each other in advance. Lu Yuan was assigned to the first arena. There were 32 people in the first arena, and one of them was a Soul Grandmaster. Apart from Lu Yuan, this Soul Grandmaster was the strongest. Coincidentally, this Soul Grandmaster was none other than Qin Yuan. It was unknown whether or not Chris had done it deliberately, but he had actually assigned him to the same arena as Qin Yuan. This was rather interesting. On this day, the sky was clear and the air was clear. The bright and beautiful sunlight sprinkled over the entire training camp, causing people to feel comfortable. Today was the official start of the Prodigy tournament. Lu Yuan had his hands behind his back, standing not far from the first arena. Apart from Yuan Xian, there was no one else around him. That's right, apart from Qin Yuan, there was also Yuan Xian and a certain yellow-haired Li Ji, who had been scared out of his wits. This Li Ji's martial soul was the Berserk Mastiff, and his soul power was at rank 17. With this kind of strength, there was basically no hope for him to enter the top 10. After all, apart from Lu Yuan and the 4 Soul Grandmasters, there were also 5 or 6 other rank 19 Soul Grandmasters in the training camp. It had to be said that the Martial Soul Palace, which controlled nearly 60% of the world's Soul Master forces, had a lot of geniuses under them. If these students from the training camp were to enter the Empire's Soul Master Academy, they would all be considered top students. But thinking about it carefully, this kind of situation was actually very normal. After all, The martial soul palace was responsible for the martial soul awakening of all the soul masters on the continent. Although commoners didn't have any bloodline inherited martial souls, once there were a lot of people, there would always be a few geniuses. Furthermore, these geniuses mostly joined the martial soul palace. In this way, the martial soul palace naturally didn't lack geniuses. Yuan Xin, you seem a little nervous. Seeing Yuan Xin looking at the arena with his fists tightly clenched and his breathing somewhat hurried, how could Lu Yuan not know what he was thinking? Who? Aren't you nervous? Yuan Xin asked. After spending 3 months together, the two's relationship had become much closer. After getting to know each other, Lu Yuan also knew that Yuan Xin was actually a person who was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. On the surface, he seemed difficult to get along with, but was actually a warm-hearted person. So gradually, the two of them became friends. I'm not nervous. What's there to be nervous about? Lu Yuan spread out his hands and laughed. That's right. With your strength, there's no need to be nervous. Yuan Xin said snappily. Now, in the entire training camp, there was no one who didn't know of Lu Yuan's name. Together with Lin Feng and the other 3, they were known as the training camp's 5 great experts, even though this guy was only rank 16. I'm different. My strength is mediocre. In this first arena, other than you and Qin Yuan, there are still a few strong opponents. In the first arena, other than Lu Yuan and Qin Yuan, there was also a rank 19 Soul Master and 2 or 3 rank 18 Soul Masters. It was no wonder that Yuan Xin was nervous. After all, with so many competitors, it was very difficult to enter the top 4 in the first arena. And if he couldn't enter the top 4, he wouldn't have the chance to participate in the final battle for the top 10. Thus, Yuan Xin was a little restless. Relax. With your strength, the probability of advancing is still very high. Don't scare yourself. If the pressure is too great and you can't use your full strength, then you'll regret it. Lu Yuan said. You're right. Yuan Xin took a deep breath and said, I hope my luck is good and I don't meet any difficult opponents. All right. Lu Yuan waved his hand and said, Look, the chief instructor and manager Hal are here. Looking at Lu Yuan's gaze, Chris, Hal, and the others were facing the sun and slowly walking toward the training ground. For a moment, they attracted the attention of all the trainees present. Chapter 40. Today, Chris was exceptionally handsome. His eyes were misty, and his face was handsome. If he had a beard, he would be even more perfect. Chris held the roster and looked around at the crowd. Today is the day of the Heaven's Pride Tournament, which is held once every 3 years. There are 4 arenas here. I've already told everyone about the division of arenas, so I won't waste any more time here. Please gather at your respective arenas. The Heaven's Pride Tournament will begin soon. I will now announce the rules of the tournament. First, you may use any weapons, but they must be inspected beforehand. You are not allowed to smear poison on them. Second, you are not allowed to intentionally kill others. Violators will not only be disqualified, but will also have to bear the corresponding consequences. Third, you are not allowed to use drugs or poisons, except for students with poisons in their martial souls. Last, during the tournament, you're not allowed to use any means to harm other students. Once caught, you will be disqualified. Private fights are also prohibited. Violators will be disqualified. All right, that's all I have to say. Now, the tournament begins. After Chris finished speaking, the students headed to their respective arenas to prepare for the tournament. Each arena was overseen by a steward, and the one in charge of arena number 1 was none other than Hal. Hal held the roster and read aloud. Arena number 1, Huang Jing against Fu Luo. Let the match begin. Huang Jing was a rank 17 agility-type soul master with a black cat as his martial soul. Fu Luo was a rank 17 assault-type soul master with a white bull as his martial soul. This battle could be considered very interesting. 1 black and 1 white, like the black and white double fiends, fought on the arena. In terms of entertainment value, the match was average. After all, they were both soul masters with only 1 soul skill. However, The battle between the black cat and the white bull was very entertaining. These two fellows simply didn't walk the normal path. Huang Jing kept jumping up and down to avoid Fu Luo's attacks. Occasionally, Fu Luo would attack, but Fu Luo would take Huang Jing's attacks head-on and then attack viciously. These two fellows, if you poke my waist, I'll kick your crotch. If you poke my eyeballs, I'll burst your ass. They really used every trick in the book. Lu Yuan felt a chill run down his spine. In the end, the agility type Huang Jing won. However, his injuries weren't light either. He had to support himself as he came down. It seemed like he wouldn't be able to recover without lying down for a few days. It was hard to imagine that these two fellows would actually stage such a hilarious battle in public. Even Manager Hao, who was in charge of supervising the competition, could not help but twitch his mouth. Meanwhile, Yuan Xen, who was standing beside Lu Yuan, rubbed his buttocks, a look of lingering fear on his face. It seemed that the battle between Huang Jing and Fu Tailuo had frightened him. The competition continued. Next match, Yuan Xin versus Chun Jia. Hearing Hao's voice, Yuan Xin's body trembled. Go, Yuan Xin. Lu Yuan patted Yuan Xin's shoulder with a smile. Yuan Xin nodded and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He then strode towards the arena. Yuan Xin's opponent was called Chun Jia. Lu Yuan had some understanding of this person. His martial soul was the Herculean Berserk Ape, an assault-type martial soul. He was also an assault-type soul master at rank 17. Generally speaking, control-type soul masters would be able to restrain assault-type soul masters. Although it wasn't absolute, it was still the case to a certain extent. Furthermore, Yuan Xin was one rank higher than Chun Jia. Therefore, if nothing unexpected happened, Yuan Xin should be the victor. Sure enough, after a fierce battle, Yuan Xin defeated Chun Jia and obtained victory in this battle. Yuan Xin panted heavily as he came to Lu Yuan's side. Although he had expended a lot of energy, it was obvious that he was in good spirits. Well done, it's a great start, Lu Yuan said. Yuan Xin laughed. A good start was naturally something to be happy about. Patting Lu Yuan's shoulder, Yuan Xin smiled and said, "It should be your turn soon." Lu Yuan nodded and did not comment. In the blink of an eye, 2 hours had passed. 7 matches had already taken place in the arena. Next match, Lu Yuan versus Li Ji. Both parties, please get ready. Hearing Hao's words, Lu Yuan and Yuan Xin looked at each other and revealed a meaningful smile at the same time. It's him. Not far from the first arena was where Qin Yuan and Li Ji stood. Boss, it's Lu Yuan. What should I do? Li Ji was a little flustered. Letting him fight with Lu Yuan, wasn't that courting death? There was no doubt that he would lose. What's the use of asking me? I can't help you. Qin Yuan said coldly as he flung Li Ji's hand away. Boss, you. Li Ji pointed at Qin Yuan. His heart was cold. This was the boss that he had followed for 3 years? What about me? Qin Yuan turned his head away and chose to ignore Li Ji's gaze. Li Ji's heart was cold. It seemed that his journey in the training camp had to come to an end. Student Li Ji, please get on the arena as soon as possible. Hao's voice sounded. Why aren't you getting on? Qin Yuan's cold voice sounded. Li Ji went to the arena absent-mindedly and looked at Lu Yuan opposite him. His heart was filled with complicated feelings. Ah, we are really enemies. Lu Yuan smiled faintly and said, So, do you want to go down by yourself, or do you want me to send you down? Li Ji raised his head. His eyes were filled with confusion. The fear towards Lu Yuan and the hatred towards Qin Yuan made him go crazy. His eyes became blood-red. I will tear you apart. With his blood-red eyes, Li Ji seemed to have become savage. The berserk state of the savage mastiff martial spirit, Lu Yuan said indifferently. For martial spirits like the savage mastiff, if they were to receive a serious blow, there was a high chance that they would enter a berserk state. Tear you apart. With the savage mastiff martial spirit in his body, Li Ji rushed towards Lu Yuan. First spirit ability, Savage Mastiff's Tooth. Li Ji pulled out a sharp blade from his claws and swung it towards Lu Yuan. His speed and strength have increased by a lot. Under the berserk state, Li Ji's aura was no less than Qin Tian's. I didn't expect Li Ji to have such a move. He's not a complete waste. Below the arena, Qin Yuan smiled coldly. The stronger Li Ji was, the more trouble he would bring to Lu Yuan. Although he did not expect Li Ji to win, he was happy that he could give Lu Yuan more trouble. Interesting. Lu Yuan stomped his right foot, causing a few cracks to appear. But it's still useless. Facing the berserk Li Ji, what welcomed him was Lu Yuan's punch. What berserk state? What berserk martial spirit? Under absolute strength, they could not withstand a single blow. With a punch that exceeded 1,000 jin, Li Ji's body was thrown out of the arena. The outcome was clear. From the beginning to the end, Lu Yuan did not even use his martial spirit and had already defeated Li Ji. Standing below the arena, Lu Yuan looked at Qin Yuan with a cold gaze. A person who could even give up on his own brother was really disgusting. Chapter 41. Qin Yuan had also sensed Lu Yuan's gaze. Both of their eyes met, and there was only enmity in them. Turning his head, Lu Yuan softly muttered, "Qin Yuan, is it?" Very quickly, the first day of the qualifiers came to an end. After the first day of the qualifiers, half of the students were eliminated. Those who passed were naturally happy, but those who failed were only filled with endless sorrow. Survival of the fittest, nothing more than that. The cruelty of the training camp was immediately reflected. Even the students who passed the first round of the qualifiers couldn't relax at all, because the following matches would be even crueler. Lu Yuan didn't feel any pressure and returned to the dormitory with Yuan Xin. In the blink of an eye, another 3 days had passed. In these 3 days, another round of the qualifiers was held. Lu Yuan naturally passed easily, and although Yuan Xin's battle was rather difficult, he also squeezed into the top 8. The qualifiers of the training camp were held every other day, which meant that there would be a day of rest after every round of the qualifiers. Today was the day of the qualifiers, and as long as one entered the top 4, they would have the opportunity to participate in the finals. Therefore, today's qualifiers were actually very important. Lu Yuan naturally didn't feel much pressure, but Yuan Xin was rather worried. The familiar training ground, the familiar Ring 1, and the familiar manager Hal. Prodigy qualifiers, Ring 1, the first round of the qualifiers begins now. Let's welcome Lin Mo and Yuan Xin. Manager Hal's voice rang out. Yuan Xin's body trembled. The first round was his match. Go, Yuan Xin, you can win. Patting Yuan Xin's shoulder, Lu Yuan revealed a trace of smile. Yuan Xin nodded, and his gaze became resolute. As long as he won this round, he would be able to enter the finals. On Ring 1, 2 youths stood facing each other. Lin Mo, Martial Soul Ink Tiger, was an assault-type soul master with a rank 19 soul power. The so-called Ink Tiger was actually a black tiger. Among the beast souls, the Ink Tiger was considered a high-grade martial soul. Furthermore, it was necessary to talk about the classification of martial souls. On the Douluo continent, although there were all kinds of martial souls, whether it was a beast soul, a tool soul, a body soul, or a plant-type martial soul, there was a unified standard to measure their strength. Martial spirits were divided into 6 ranks from low to high. The lowest ranked martial soul was naturally a trash martial soul. This type of martial soul basically had no chance to cultivate. Even if a soul power appeared occasionally, it would mostly be half a rank or 1 rank. It was very rare for a soul power to surpass the 3rd rank. Among them, the most typical was naturally the blue-silver grass, which could be considered a classic example of a trash martial soul. Of course, Tang San's blue-silver grass was an exception. It was the blue-silver emperor. After there were low-grade martial souls. Hammers, sickles, and hoes were considered low-grade martial souls. The chances of soul power appearing were very low, and even if it did appear, it would generally be below the 3rd rank. After there were high-grade martial souls. Nodding Academy's Wang Sheng's War Tiger, Su Yuntao's Lone Wolf, and even Lin Mo's Ink Tiger were all high-grade martial souls. Once a high-grade martial soul produced soul power, it would generally be above the 2nd or 3rd rank. It was very rare for it to exceed the 7th rank. Lin Mo's innate soul power was at the 8th rank, so he could cultivate to the 19th rank at the age of 10. After there were top-grade martial souls. Top-grade martial souls were different from high-grade martial souls in that they could produce innate full soul power. Generally speaking, as long as a soul master possessed a top-grade martial soul, his innate soul power would not be below the 5th rank. This was the innate strength of a martial soul. For example, the Clear Sky Sect's Clear Sky Hammer and the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Sect's Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon were top-grade martial souls. On the Douluo continent, there were not many soul masters who possessed top-grade martial souls. After that were superb martial souls. Superb martial souls were above top-grade martial souls and were abnormally strong. Soul masters who possessed superb martial souls could often fight opponents who were of a higher rank than them. Although top-grade martial souls were rare, they could still be seen frequently. However, superb martial souls were truly rare. One of the most prominent representatives of superb martial souls was the ultimate martial soul. Every ultimate martial soul was a superb martial soul. Generally speaking, soul masters who possessed superb martial souls would have innate full soul power. There were very few exceptions. For example, Lu Yuan's Golden Dragon martial soul was a top-grade superb martial soul. Finally, there were God-ranked martial souls. For example, Chihiro Snow's Seraph martial soul and Sea God's Island Pacizi's Sea God martial soul were both God-ranked martial souls. God-ranked martial souls were unique in that they possessed divinity. Generally speaking, soul masters who possessed God-ranked martial souls would have an innate full soul power of rank 20. God-ranked martial souls were undoubtedly strong, but they were not necessarily stronger than superb martial souls. For example, martial souls like the Golden Dragon and Emerald Qilin were not inferior to God-ranked martial souls in terms of quality, even if they did not have an innate full soul power of rank 20. As for whether there were existences above God-ranked martial souls, it was not clear. After all, God-ranked martial souls should be God-ranked martial souls. Such a martial soul had never appeared on the Douluo continent. Unless there was a day when someone possessed the Azura God or Destruction God martial souls, their martial souls might be stronger than God-ranked martial souls like the Seraph. On the stage, Lin Mo's Ink Tiger and Yuan Xian's Purple Jade Bamboo were both high-ranked martial souls. The gap between their martial souls was not large. Lin Mo's soul power was at rank 19, while Yuan Xian's was at rank 18. Lin Mo was one rank higher, but Yuan Xian was a control-type soul master, while Lin Mo was an assault-type soul master. Generally speaking, a control-type soul master countered an assault-type soul master. Therefore, there was not much difference between their strengths and weaknesses. It was not surprising who would emerge victorious. At this moment, the battle on the stage began. After a fierce battle, Yuan Xian won by a small margin and took a spot in the top 4. However, he had sustained injuries that were not light. He would need a few days of rest to recover. He was not fated to compete for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place in the next stage. However, he had at least obtained a spot in the finals. After Yuan Xian's match ended, 2 more matches were held. After an hour, there were only 2 people left in the first arena who had not yet started their matches. One was Lu Yuan, and the other was Qin Yuan. This was truly a case of enemies meeting on a narrow road. Compared to Lu Yuan's carefree expression, Qin Yuan's expression was very ugly. He was very afraid of Lu Yuan and did not want to clash with Lu Yuan directly. However, he did not expect to meet Lu Yuan at the crucial point of the quarterfinals. It seems like even the heavens want us to settle this. Seeing Qin Yuan's ashen expression, Lu Yuan's face revealed a trace of mockery. He looked down on people like Qin Yuan, who was jealous of others. His actions of abandoning his underlings were even more despicable. Lu Yuan's expression turned serious. He stood up and stared at Qin Yuan. Word by word, he said, "Qin Yuan, with me here, you can dream of entering the top 4. Chapter 42. Lu Yuan's words were tantamount to a declaration of war. Qin Yuan's expression turned cold and sinister. I will tear you apart. Tear me apart? I'm afraid you don't have that ability. Lu Yuan smiled with disdain. The fourth match of the quarterfinals begins now. Manager Hal announced. Martial soul possession. Both of them possessed their martial souls at the same time. Behind Qin Yuan was a demonic wolf surrounded by raging flames. It was his martial soul, the purgatory demonic wolf. It was a top-tier beast soul, although it couldn't be compared to the evil eye white tiger or the silver moon heavenly wolf. It was still considered a top-tier martial soul. Otherwise, Qin Yuan's innate soul power wouldn't be able to reach the 8th rank. 2 yellow soul rings rippled beneath Qin Yuan's body. Lu Yuan's aura was even more extraordinary. Golden light flashed, and a huge golden dragon martial soul appeared behind Lu Yuan. Its huge dragon wings flapped, and a dragon's roar sounded. An intense dragon's aura filled the entire arena, and everyone present felt a strong pressure. The golden dragon martial soul was a top-tier beast soul. It had an innate ability to suppress other beast souls. Below Lu Yuan, a yellow soul ring with a tinge of purple emitted a faint light. Although Lu Yuan was only a rank 16 soul master, the aura he emitted wasn't inferior to Qin Yuan's. It was even stronger. Qin Yuan's expression turned serious. Although he was a soul grandmaster, he had never underestimated Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan, do your best. Yuan Xin encouraged himself below the stage. He was still a little worried about this battle. After all, although Lu Yuan was strong, he was only a soul master. However, Qin Yuan was a genuine soul grandmaster. Lu Yuan's lips curled up. Today would be his first step in conquering the training camp. Bang! This was the sound of Lu Yuan's feet stomping on the ground. With a stomp, Lu Yuan's figure rapidly approached Qin Yuan. As far as Lu Yuan was concerned, his strongest point was still close combat. Come on! Qin Yuan shouted and waved his wolf claws as he charged towards Lu Yuan. Boom! The dragon claw and the wolf claw collided, splashing out sparks. Relying on his profound soul force, Qin Yuan's attack was actually evenly matched with Lu Yuan's. Without retreating in the slightest, Lu Yuan opened up a path with his dragon claw. His muscles tightened, and a terrifying strength began to be displayed. For the golden dragon, there was nothing that could not be destroyed by absolute power. With his golden dragon martial soul, Lu Yuan's true stance was to attack, absolutely attack. Pa! A palm slapped away Qin Yuan's wolf claws, and a knee hit Qin Yuan's stomach. Under the impact of this force, Qin Yuan's body was pushed back several steps. When Lu Yuan began to truly enter a battle mode, even Qin Yuan, a soul grandmaster, was quickly defeated in this battle of brute force. Damn it! A sharp pain came from his abdomen, and Qin Yuan's expression turned ugly. In a head-on collision just now, he had been defeated almost instantly. His purgatory demonic wolf martial soul had been completely crushed in terms of strength. No, I can't compete with this brat in terms of strength. Qin Yuan's thoughts raced. Just now, Lu Yuan's punches and kicks were not inferior to Yan Xiang's strength at all. They were much stronger than him. However, his purgatory demon wolf's forte was never strength. First soul skill, Purgatory Demon Flame. Qin Yuan shouted, and his first yellow soul ring flashed. A black flame rushed from Qin Yuan's body towards Lu Yuan. The Purgatory Demonic Flame possessed a very strong adhesion and corrosive properties. It was a very powerful flame. Qin Yuan's first soul ring was a 200-year nether flame wolf, and the Purgatory Demonic Flame was a soul skill bestowed upon him by the nether flame wolf. Lu Yuan's body moved, and he dodged the demon flame. His sharp dragon claws slammed towards Qin Yuan. The Purgatory Demon Flame might be very powerful to ordinary people, but couldn't hurt him at all with his speed. Second soul skill, Purgatory Protection. A layer of black flames climbed up Qin Yuan's body. Under the Purgatory Protection, Qin Yuan's strength, speed, and defense were all increased by 50%. At the same time, he was also protected by the demon flame. It was a very powerful skill. After another collision, Lu Yuan felt the increase in strength in Qin Yuan's body. His eyes narrowed. Lu Yuan circulated his soul power and extinguished the demon flame on his hand. He smiled faintly. Interesting. Is this your full strength? Die, Lu Yuan. Qin Yuan's face was sinister, and the hatred in his eyes seemed to want to swallow Lu Yuan whole. Then let's see how strong you are. He clenched his dragon claws into a fist. This time, he was going to use his true strength. Split the mountains and overturn the seas. This fist came from the mountain's sea fist. Facing Qin Yuan, who had used 2 soul skills, Lu Yuan was starting to get serious. The 2 figures fought crazily. Golden light and black flames attacked each other. Everyone below the stage had their eyes wide open. This battle was very rare in the training camp, and it could be said that every punch was on the flesh. Lu Yuan and Qin Yuan began to fight fiercely. You punch, I punch. The fight was very intense, and the audience below the stage was very satisfied. In the eyes of ordinary students, the 2 people on the stage seemed to be evenly matched. However, in the eyes of a true expert, Qin Yuan was already at an absolute disadvantage. Qin Yuan was already using his full strength, while Lu Yuan didn't even use a soul skill. Moreover, Lu Yuan's body was almost undamaged. On the other hand, Qin Yuan's clothes were left with scratches. Using the clear Qi scripture, Lu Yuan extinguished the black devil flames on his hand. In the fight with Qin Yuan just now, the devil flames had given Lu Yuan a lot of trouble. Otherwise, Qin Yuan would have been defeated long ago. But now, Lu Yuan was tired of playing with it. He planned to end this match. Crack! This was the sound of bones cracking when a fist was clenched. The palm covered in golden scales tightly clenched into a fist, and a low explosion sounded. This fist wasn't simple. Qin Yuan didn't notice it at all. Relying on Purgatory's armor, he attacked Lu Yuan without caring about anything. Reckless. The golden fist contained Lu Yuan's 3,000 kilograms of strength. This was the strongest strength he could muster without using any soul skills. The wind blew against Qin Yuan's face, and that extremely oppressive fist came into view. Not good. Qin Yuan was shocked. This fist gave him a very dangerous feeling. He couldn't take it. However, Qin Yuan was ultimately an assault-type soul master. Speed wasn't his forte, and he couldn't dodge this ferocious punch. Hurriedly, he retracted his arms and protected his chest. Bang! A figure was smashed off the stage. It was Qin Yuan. Even though Lu Yuan didn't use any soul skills, he was still able to destroy all of Qin Yuan's defenses with his 1,500 kilograms of strength. Looking at Qin Yuan, who was struggling to get up, Lu Yuan didn't have any sympathy. Who asked him to provoke him for no reason? Lu Yuan's expression didn't change. He said indifferently, "Is this your strength? You're really weak. You don't even have the qualifications to make me use a soul skill." Chapter 43. There was silence below the ring. The reversal of the situation happened too quickly. Not long ago, they were neck and neck, but in the blink of an eye, Qin Yuan was ruthlessly defeated. He was still below the ring, unable to get up. Lu Yuan's punch was too powerful. Qin Yuan's arms were fractured and several of his ribs were broken. Don't blame Lu Yuan for being heavy-handed. As the saying goes, if people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I'll pay them back tenfold. He wasn't a saint. He couldn't repay evil with good. Qin Yuan was notorious in the training camp. When he was seriously injured by Lu Yuan, the trainees didn't blame Lu Yuan. Instead, they were secretly happy. With such injuries, he had no chance to participate in the selection. With Qin Yuan defeated by Lu Yuan, there was no doubt that Lu Yuan had become a strong contender for the top 3. At the same time, Lu Yuan's reputation in the training camp grew. At the same time, after Lu Yuan's victory, the top 4 matches came to an end. All that was left was the final match. 3 days later, 3 of the 4 rings on the training ground had been dismantled. Now, only one ring was left. After a series of selections, 16 trainees successfully entered the final match. When it came to the final match, the crowd was much smaller. After all, the trainees who failed in the previous matches had been sent out of the training camp. Therefore, other than the 16 trainees who participated in the selections, there were many younger trainees left. The cruelty of the training camp once again appeared in front of everyone. The host of the final match was Chris. Standing on the high platform, Chris looked around and said, "After a strict selection, we have finally entered the final match. This time, there are 16 trainees participating in the final match. These 16 trainees are the best of the best in the training camp. However, our rule is that only the top 10 are qualified to graduate from the training camp. Therefore, everyone still needs to work hard. The finals this time will be divided into 3 days to select the final champion. On the first day, the top 16 will advance to the top 8. There will be a total of 8 groups. The winners will enter the top 8, and the losers will compete for the 9th and 10th place. The second day will be the quarterfinals. The winners will enter the semifinals, and the losers will compete again to determine the rankings. The last day will be the championship battle. This time, the format of the championship battle has changed. It will no longer be a one-on-one battle. Instead, it will be a free-for-all battle. The last person standing on the stage will be the final champion. His Holiness the Pontiff has issued an order. This year's champion will be able to join the Pontiff's palace and choose an elder to be his disciple. The rewards are generous. I hope everyone will work hard. Finally, I wish everyone a satisfactory result. Now, let's begin the finals." As soon as Chris finished speaking, many trainees who had entered the finals could not help but breathe faster. Originally, the top 3 trainees of the training camp were qualified to join the Pontiff's palace. However, they were only qualified to join the Pontiff's palace. However, this year's champion could choose an elder to be his disciple. This was indeed a great reward. If they could have an elder as their backer, their status in the Martial Soul Palace would instantly change. Among the 16 trainees, only Lin Feng, Yin Xiang, Feng Yuyan, and Lu Yuan had the highest chance of winning the championship. Therefore, the other trainees had their eyes on them. After all, their strength was much weaker than the 4 of them. It's best if they meet first. This was the same thought in the minds of the other trainees. Being stared at by everyone, the 4 of them had different expressions on their faces. Yin Xiang had a smile on his face, but his gaze was firm. He looked at Lu Yuan and Lin Feng with vigilance and seriousness from time to time. Feng Yuyan, on the other hand, was carefully sizing up Lu Yuan. Her eyes were shining. Lin Feng did not bat an eyelid. He still looked indifferent, but his usually steady breathing had become heavier. Lu Yuan, on the other hand, glanced at the 3 of them with a calm look on his face, but his mind was spinning. He had a feeling that the rules of this year's finals were not good, or it could be said that they were specifically targeting him. Others might not know, but Chris, who was in charge of training him, knew most of his strength. If it was a one-on-one battle, he would definitely be the champion. However, the rules had changed. In the end, if he wanted to win the championship, it would be a 1-on-3 battle. If that happened, it would not be so easy to win. He would have to go all out against 3 Soul Grandmaster opponents. This change in the rules was definitely not Chris's idea. It was more likely that it came from the higher-ups. There was only one person who had the authority to give orders to the Heaven's Pride training camp, and that was her, the supreme ruler of the Pontiff's palace. So they want to see my full strength? Lu Yuan muttered to himself. His eyes were filled with determination. The first round of the finals has officially begun. The first round is between Li Tian and Zhang San. The finals began. The other students' thoughts did not come true. Lu Yuan, Lin Feng, Yin Xiang, and Feng Yuyan did not encounter each other. This was not surprising. After all, the 4 of them were the strongest. The managers of the training camp were not fools. Naturally, they would not let them encounter each other so early. If they guessed correctly, the final 4 would be the 4 of them. Lu Yuan's opponent was called Xiongmeng. His martial soul was the Herculean Vajra Bear. It was the same martial soul as Zhao Wuji in the original work. He was 10 years old this year and was a rank 19 Soul Grandmaster. He was from Yinmin and was Yin Xiang's subordinate. His strength was not bad in the training camp, but it was a pity that he met Lu Yuan. The Herculean Vajra Bear was a top-grade martial soul. It was a pity that it met the Golden Dragon, the ancestor of strength. It was crushed from beginning to end. After a few moves, it was defeated by Lu Yuan. Lin Feng and Feng Yiyan's opponents were not strong either. They were easily defeated by the two. Yin Xiang's situation was somewhat out of Lu Yuan's expectations. His opponent was Yuan Xin. This was equivalent to a battle between two people from the same camp. Yin Xiang's martial soul was the Green Lightning Divine Elephant, a top-grade martial soul. It was very strong and could control the power of thunder. Yuan Xion's martial soul was the Purple Jade Bamboo, a high-grade martial soul. Coupled with the difference in their soul power, even though Control-type Soul Masters had an advantage over Assault-type Soul Masters, it was insignificant in the face of absolute power. The final result was Yuan Xion's defeat and Yin Xiang's advancement. Yuan Xian could only fight for the 9th and 10th place in the losers bracket. Lu Yuan could do nothing but sigh at such a result. After all, the training camp respected strength. However, it was worth mentioning that after a fierce competition in the losers bracket, Yuan Xian obtained the 10th place at the cost of serious injuries. It was an unexpected surprise. Chapter 44. Yuan Xian was overjoyed to get the 10th place. He encouraged Lu Yuan and returned to his room to recuperate. Although his injuries were serious, with the help of the training camp's healing soul masters, he could fully recover in less than a week without any sequelae. While Yuan Xion's journey was over, Lu Yuan's own journey had just begun. The finals continued, and the top 8 didn't pose any obstacles to Lu Yuan. He easily passed the stage. The other 3 naturally entered the top 4 without any surprises. It was worth mentioning that Lin Feng's opponent was Qin Tian, the younger brother of Qin Yuan, who had been beaten up by Lu Yuan. Unexpectedly, he entered the top 10 and even the top 8. However, he met Lin Feng, who had developed in the same direction as him. He was simply crushed. During the finals, Lin Feng's speed shocked Lu Yuan. He was indeed too fast. No wonder he was known as the number 1 in the training camp. Lu Yuan's fighting spirit rose in his heart. The next day, after the competition ended, he went to the cafeteria for dinner and packed a lunchbox for Yuan Xian. Standing up, Lu Yuan habitually patted his clothes and walked towards the dormitory. Due to the continuous competition, more than half of the students had been eliminated. Therefore, the training camp was quite empty at the moment. Occasionally, only 1 or 2 people would pass by the large training field. The cafeteria wasn't far from the dormitory. After passing through the training field, the dormitory was located. Lu Yuan carried the lunchbox and walked on the road. Suddenly, Lu Yuan's footsteps stopped. His voice was indifferent. "You've been following me for so long. You can come out now." "Hee, little brother, you have sharp senses." The voice was crisp and filled with a faint charm. A beautiful figure appeared in front of Lu Yuan. She had curved eyebrows, a pretty face, and long purple hair draped over her shoulders. Wearing a purple dress, she was very charming. Even with Lu Yuan's eyes, he had to admit that she was indeed a very beautiful woman. Moreover, she was very tempting. "Hall Master Feng, you've been following me all the way. What can I do for you?" Looking at this beautiful woman, Lu Yuan's heart didn't fluctuate too much. She was beautiful, but she wasn't his type. He preferred big ones. This Feng Yiyan was indeed beautiful, but she was flat. He was not interested in her. "Little brother, you're treating me like an outsider. Just call me Sister Feng," Feng Yiyan said softly. There was a hint of shyness in her tone. Coupled with her charming face, she was really attractive. If it was another 6-year-old child, he might not be able to resist her charm. However, although Lu Yuan was only 6 years old, his mental age was more than 20 years old. How could he be interested in a 10-year-old girl? Unless she was old. Ahem. So Feng Yiyan's words did not affect Lu Yuan at all. "Hall Master Feng, if there's anything, just say it." "If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. I still have some matters to attend to, Lu Yuan said. Looking at Lu Yuan, who was not affected at all, and even chased her away, Feng Yuyin was a little surprised. Could it be that her charm had deteriorated? She couldn't even deal with a child? However, being surprised was one thing. Looking at Lu Yuan, who was still calm, Feng Yuyin finally opened her mouth. Lu Yuan, I want to talk to you about tomorrow's finals. Finals? What's wrong? Lu Yuan asked indifferently. Feng Yuyin said, tomorrow's finals will be a mixed battle. I think we can work together to eliminate the other two. What do you think? From Feng Yuyin's point of view, Lin Feng and Yin Xiang were difficult opponents in tomorrow's finals. They were also the biggest threats. Although Lu Yuan defeated Qin Yuan, Feng Yuyin felt that Lu Yuan's strength was in his strength. His spiritual power was definitely not as good as soul grandmasters like them. However, she was good at using her spiritual power. If she worked together with Lu Yuan to eliminate Lin Feng and Yin Xiang, she was confident that she would be the final champion. Nothing. Lu Yuan shook his head. What did you say? Feng Yuyin's voice raised a few octaves. From her point of view, Lu Yuan would definitely agree. She didn't expect him to say nothing. I said nothing, Lu Yuan said. How can it be nothing? Listen to my analysis. Hearing that Lu Yuan wasn't interested, Feng Yuyin was a little anxious. Lin Feng, a rank 22 soul grandmaster. His martial soul is the ghost leopard. He is the strongest in our middle class. He is known as the #1 expert in the training camp. You saw his speed today. It is very shocking. It is very difficult to defeat him. Yin Xiang, his martial soul is the green lightning divine elephant. He is very strong and can control the power of thunder. His attack power is very strong, just based on pure strength. Even Lin Feng is not as good as him. It is also very difficult to defeat him. But if we work together, it will be different. I am good at control, and you're good at strength. We can get rid of the two of them first. In this way, only the two of us will be left. Who will be the champion in the end will depend on our own abilities. After Feng Yuyin finished speaking, she was very confident. She believed that after her practical and powerful analysis, Lu Yuan would definitely agree to her request. When the time came, she just needed to eliminate Lin Feng and Yin Xiang while he was unprepared. Then, there would only be Lu Yuan left. To her, it would be very easy. The champion would be at her fingertips. After hearing Feng Yuyin's words, Lu Yuan looked at her as if he was looking at an idiot. Did this woman think that he was retarded? She was a control-type soul grandmaster and didn't need to fight in close combat. When the time came, the one who would have to fight would be him. Even if he eliminated Lin Feng and Yin Xiang, he would definitely use up a lot of his soul power. In the end, it would still benefit her. Furthermore, in his opinion, this final round was specially changed by BB Don to see his strength. How could he be allowed to work together with others? He was sure that if he dared to work together, Chris would definitely stop him. Since he couldn't work together with others, he might as well fight alone. Furthermore, it wasn't as if he didn't have the confidence to win. I refuse. Looking at the confident Feng Yuyin, Lu Yuan said plainly. What? Feng Yuyin's beautiful eyes widened. She didn't understand. If I want to become the champion, I should do it fair and square. How can I work together with others? I don't want to be the champion. Lu Yuan's voice was low, but it was filled with determination. Then what if the two of them work together? Feng Yuyin asked. Then let them work together. What do I have to be afraid of? If worst comes to worst, I'll fight 1 against 2. Lu Yuan glanced at Feng Yuyin and said plainly. You. Feng Yuyin was stunned by Lu Yuan's words. She didn't know what to say for a moment. Oh, right. As if he suddenly thought of something, Lu Yuan smiled and said, If you want, you can work together with them. If worst comes to worst, I'll fight 1 against 3. After he finished speaking, Lu Yuan took the lunchbox and left. Looking at Lu Yuan's back, Feng Yuyin was in a daze. Lu Yuan was such a proud person. Chapter 45. Lu Yuan did not take Feng Yuyin's words to heart. He would deal with whatever came his way. Even if the three of them teamed up, he was confident that he would be the final winner. This was his confidence in his own strength. Returning to the dorm, he chatted with Yuan Xin and began to meditate. The most important thing in cultivation was perseverance. The night passed quickly. The next day, at around 8 o'clock in the morning, everyone gathered at the training ground again. Today's battle would be the last battle of the training camp, and also the most intense battle for the championship. Hence, early in the morning, the arena was filled with people. All the trainees who were still in the training camp, including Yuan Xin and the other injured trainees, were all present. Looking at the three eager opponents, Lu Yuan touched his ring. Perhaps he would have to use all his trump cards today. Lin Feng, Yin Xiang, and Feng Yuyan each had their own strengths. Together, it would be quite troublesome. Chris stood on the arena. The atmosphere was quite high since it was the final battle. After waving his hands, Chris cleared his throat and said, "Dear students, after the cruel and fierce preliminaries, we have 4 contestants left. They are Lin Feng." On the arena, Lin Feng nodded. Yin Xiang. Yin Xiang revealed a simple and honest smile. Feng Yuyan. Feng Yuyan smiled faintly, revealing a seductive charm. And the last one, Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan, go for it. Yuan Xin waved his hand below the arena. Lu Yuan nodded at Yuan Xin. Today's battle is a free-for-all. Other than not being allowed to use poison and intentionally causing death, there are no other rules. After the battle, the last trainee standing will be the champion of the competition. Chris glanced at the 4 of them. Are you all ready? The 4 of them nodded in unison. All right, let the battle officially begin. Chris quickly walked down the arena. Only Lu Yuan and the other 3 were left on the arena. Looking at the 4 of them who still did not move, Lu Yuan smiled faintly and rushed towards Lin Feng. Among the 3 of them, he was only interested in Lin Feng. Good timing. Facing Lu Yuan's attack, Lin Feng did not back down. Their figures intertwined with each other. Hell, let's begin then. Yin Xiang laughed as he charged into the battle between the 2. Feng Yuyan's expression changed slightly, and her body emitted a purple mist. A purple plant appeared at her right hand, and 2 yellow soul rings shone brightly. It was her martial soul, the purple smoke luo, a top-notch martial soul of the plant element. It had the ability to create illusions and poisons. The purple mist slowly spread towards the 3 of them. Martial soul possession. 3 martial souls appeared in his body, and 5 yellow soul rings shone at the same time. The battle was about to begin. After pushing Yin Xiang back with a punch, Lu Yuan swept his leg towards Lin Feng. This kick came violently, bringing with it a whistling sound. Lin Feng's eyes turned cold. He turned his body and dodged Lu Yuan's kick. Just as Lu Yuan was about to give chase, Yin Xiang's fist flew towards Lu Yuan's head. Crack! Lu Yuan clenched his right fist, gathered all his strength, and punched out. The 2 fists collided. Lu Yuan took 2 steps back, but Yin Xiang was sent flying. Damn, you're strong. Yin Xiang stabilized himself. He patted his chest and sighed as he felt the numbness in his fist. Lin Feng's expression changed. He actually sent Yin Xiang flying with a punch. What great strength! Lu Yuan did not pay much attention to Yin Xiang. He continued to pounce on Lin Feng. To Lu Yuan, Lin Feng was the biggest threat. Ghostly shadow leopard. Lin Feng took a step, and his body became erratic. This was his first soul skill, and its effect was to increase his speed and stealth. Lin Feng's body split into several. Lu Yuan's consecutive attacks landed on the afterimages and did not cause any damage to Lin Feng. Interesting. Lu Yuan paused, and his body became ethereal. Phoenix Dance of the 6 Illusions. His figure split into 6, turning into many afterimages. In an instant, he caught up with Lin Feng. He's so fast. Lu Yuan's fist brushed past the tip of Lin Feng's nose. The sharp wind caused goosebumps to appear all over Lin Feng's body. Whoosh! Lu Yuan stepped forward, and the 6 afterimages surrounded Lin Feng. This! Yin Xiang felt his scalp go numb as he watched the 2 figures flying away. The speed of these 2 was too terrifying. He couldn't interfere at all. However, from the looks of it, Lin Feng was at a disadvantage. Yin Xiang was secretly shocked. Not only did he crush him in terms of strength, but he also surpassed Lin Feng in terms of speed. What a terrifying kid. Second soul skill, ghostly leopard combo. Lin Feng felt immense pressure from Lu Yuan's speed. He had no choice but to use his second soul skill. As an agility-type soul master, Lin Feng was actually suppressed by an assault-type soul master in terms of speed. To be honest, Lin Feng felt quite sullen. Stormy waves. Facing Lin Feng's sharp leopard claws, Lu Yuan was not afraid. He used the move of the Mountain Sea Fist. The power of the Mountain Sea Fist was not inferior to soul skills. After all, it was the pride of the top 10 martial artist, Wu Wudi. Wu Wudi was one of the top experts in the world of wind and cloud. Even in this world, he was at least a soul sage. How could the martial arts of such an expert be weak? The level of the world of wind and cloud might not be much lower than the Douluo continent. However, although Lu Yuan was proficient in the Mountain Sea Fist, he still did not understand the essence of it thoroughly. In fact, this was understandable. After all, Lu Yuan was only 6 years old. This martial art was enough for him to use until he became a Soul King or Soul Emperor. Lin Feng's speed was very fast. The power of the ghostly leopard combo was not small. However, it was not much of a threat to Lu Yuan, who was not inferior to him in terms of speed and attack power. Lu Yuan's punch offset Lin Feng's combo and still went straight for Lin Feng's chest. Looking at the huge fist that was close at hand, Lin Feng quickly turned his body. However, he was still hit by the fist wind and his body was thrown a few meters away. Cough! Lin Feng's body fell to the ground, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Lu Yuan did not stop and continued to attack. As the saying goes, take the opponent's life when he is sick. Bang! A cloud of purple smoke wrapped around Lu Yuan. This purple smoke was full of a sweet smell, making people unconsciously want to smell it. Lu Yuan was shocked. He felt that his head was a little confused. He quickly used the clear chi scripture to get rid of the confusion in his mind. The clear chi scripture was worthy of being a peerless technique. In a moment, Lu Yuan's mind was clear again. Lu Yuan's face changed. He only felt an aura suddenly attack. With his arms crossed in front of his chest, a huge fist slammed into the intersection of Lu Yuan's arms. The huge force forced Lu Yuan to take 7 steps back before he could stabilize himself. Looking at the figure opposite him, Lu Yuan's face became dignified. Chapter 46. Lin Feng steadied himself and faced Lu Yuan. There were 3 figures standing in front of him. Lin Feng had already stabilized himself. Not far from him was Feng Yuyan, and the one who punched Lu Yuan was Yin Xiang. Yin Xiang saw that Lu Yuan was being controlled by Feng Yuyan's purple mist, so he launched a sneak attack to eliminate him. After all, he had been a student for 3 years, so he had some understanding of the hallucinatory effects of Feng Yuyan's purple mist. However, he didn't expect Lu Yuan to recover so quickly. He wasn't affected by the purple mist at all. Yin Xiang's powerful punch only made Lu Yuan take 7 steps back. It didn't seem like he was hurt. How about we team up to deal with him first? Feng Yuyan's eyes flashed as she asked. Lin Feng and Yin Xiang were silent for a while, then nodded. Lu Yuan was too strong. If they didn't eliminate Lu Yuan, they wouldn't be able to become the champion. Lu Yuan's lips curled up as he looked at the 3 of them, who seemed to have come to an agreement. He touched his ring lightly, and a spear appeared in his hand. It was the Emperor Dragon Shocks the World. The spear drew a semicircle, causing sparks to fly. Lu Yuan smiled and said, "You guys should have teamed up a long time ago. I'm getting impatient from waiting." "Good boy." Chris smiled faintly when he heard Lu Yuan's arrogant words. "The real battle has just begun." How arrogant. Lin Feng's face was indifferent. He didn't look happy or sad, but anger rose in his heart. He was once the #1 expert in the training camp, but now he was defeated by Lu Yuan and had to team up with someone else. Even with his indifferent personality, he couldn't help but feel angry. It's starting. Feng Yuyan's eyes were indifferent. It was just like what he said yesterday. 1 against 3. I'll go first. Remember to support me, Yin Xiang said and rushed towards Lu Yuan. As an assault-type soul master, he naturally had to face Lu Yuan head-on. Lu Yuan's expression remained calm as he watched Yin Xiang charge at him. On the other side, Yin Xiang was a strong attacker who would restrain him from the front. Lin Feng was an agility type who would be responsible for sneak attacks and harass him. Feng Yin was responsible for crowd control. It could be said that they were a perfect combination. With the three of them together, it wasn't as simple as 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. However, even if this was the case, what did he have to fear? He would directly smash them to pieces. It was that simple. Yin Xiang's martial spirit was the green lightning divine elephant, which was a top-grade martial spirit. Therefore, his attacks were quite fierce. Barbaric Elephant's Charge. This was Yin Xiang's first soul skill, a strength-type soul skill. With the help of the forward momentum and Yin Xiang's own strength, the power of this collision was not to be underestimated. Lu Yuan did not panic in his heart. He swung his spear horizontally, as swift as a handsome dragon. Azure Dragon exploring the sea. This move came from the vast sea spear art. The thrust of the spear was unstoppable. Not only was it powerful, but it also contained extraordinary skill. With Lu Yuan's immense strength, this spear could be said to have reached the acme of perfection. As the saying goes, with a spear in hand, the world is mine. Lu Yuan, with a spear in his hand, was his strongest state. The 150-kilogram Emperor Dragon shock was swift. The 2-meter-long spear was like nothing in Lu Yuan's hands. It could be lengthened or shortened at will. In the blink of an eye, all of Yin Xiang's attacks were reduced to nothingness. The barbaric elephant's charge was powerful, but if it couldn't get close, it would be useless. Furthermore, it would be a waste of soul power. Looking at the sharp tip of the shock of the world, Yin Xiang's hair stood on end. All of his soul skills were useless. Bang! With a swing of the spear, Yin Xiang's large body was flung away, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. What exquisite spear skills! Chris exclaimed. He originally thought that Lu Yuan's strength and speed were his trump cards. He didn't expect him to have such exquisite spear skills. What amazing kid! No wonder His Holiness took a fancy to this kid. In Chris's opinion, the current Lu Yuan was truly a peerless talent. Not only was his martial soul abnormally powerful, but he also had endless skills and a firm will. Even the current Martial Soul Palace's famous Golden Generation couldn't compare to him. As a loyal follower of the Martial Soul Palace, he felt that the Martial Soul Palace was lucky to have such a genius. Even Chris exclaimed, not to mention the spectators below the stage. Each and every one of them was already stunned. Yuan Xian's eyes were filled with deep shock. His roommate was really heaven-defying. He was fighting 1 against 3, but he didn't fall into a disadvantage. Recalling Lu Yuan's heroic words when he first entered the training camp, Yuan Xian couldn't help but admit that Lu Yuan was really a monstrous genius that was beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Qin Tian, who was lucky enough to enter the top 10, was also shocked by Lu Yuan's strength. There was no longer any dissatisfaction in his heart. When someone is slightly stronger than you, you may be jealous, but when someone is far above you, you can only look up to them and not dare to complain. He had been completely defeated by Lin Feng, but Lu Yuan was able to fight against 3 of them at the same time. One could imagine how big the gap was between them. The current Lu Yuan and Qin Tian were no longer on the same level. The long spear pierced out, bringing with it a strong wind, and the sound of waves splashing could be heard. Surging waves, spear after spear was like a tide, endless and unending. Whether it was Yin Xiang's strong attack, the power of thunder and lightning, or Lin Feng's speed and attacks, they were all useless against the spear skills that had no blind spots or flaws. Like a lone boat in the sea, it could be attacked by the waves at any time. 1 against 2, Lin Feng had the upper hand. On the stage, the few of them had been fighting for more than half an hour. Yin Xiang and Lin Feng were restraining Lu Yuan, while Feng Yin secretly released her poison mist to disturb him. The three of them were on par with Lu Yuan. However, under Lu Yuan's increasingly smooth spear skills, the few of them could only parry and not fight back. Bang! The long spear and the iron hammer collided, causing sparks to fly. Seeing that Lu Yuan had used a long spear, Yin Xiang and Lin Feng also used their own weapons, a big iron hammer and a throwing knife respectively. One attacked in close range, the other shot arrows from the dark, and with Feng Yin's control, they were able to resist Lu Yuan's attacks. Pooh! A throwing knife flew past Lu Yuan's eyes. Lin Feng's throwing knife was hidden in the wind. Not only was the sound it made was very soft, but it was also very fast. An ordinary person would have a hard time blocking it. However, Lu Yuan's spiritual senses were very strong, and he was very fast. In addition to his outstanding spear skills, the throwing knife was not a threat to him. After dodging Lin Feng's throwing knife, Lu Yuan's body shone with a yellow light. His first soul skill, Golden Dragon Fist. Although the Golden Dragon Fist was called a fist, it was actually an amplification soul skill. Right now, the Golden Dragon Fist could increase one's strength by 110%, speed and strength by 55%. Yin Xiang, be careful. Feng Yuyin saw through Lu Yuan's actions. Seeing that Yin Xiang was not moving, she quickly reminded him and ran towards him. Oh no, help him! Lin Feng's figure flashed, and he came beside Yin Xiang. His soul power surged wildly. I'll finish you with one move. Vast Sea Universe. Chapter 47. The Vast Ocean Universe was the ultimate move of the Vast Ocean Spear Art. It was extremely powerful. With the enhancement from his Golden Dragon Fists, the power of this attack had already exceeded the peak of Lu Yuan's offensive prowess. Lightning Elephant's Protection. Ghost Leopard's Combo. Purple Vine Barrier. In the face of Lu Yuan's menacing spear, the three of them each released their strongest attack. Blue, green, and purple soul power stacked together to form a huge barrier. Three different colors of light flowed around the barrier, making it seem unbreakable. Lu Yuan's clear air scripture was activated, and his golden soul power poured into the spear. The Imperial Dragon Shocks the World emitted a dazzling golden light, and the golden dragon on the spear seemed to come alive. A huge dragon head condensed at the tip of the spear, and it fiercely attacked the barrier. Bang! The golden dragon head slammed into the barrier, and ripples of energy appeared. The barrier began to tremble violently. Hold on! Yin Xiang clenched his teeth, and his soul power poured out. When Lin Feng saw this, the green soul power in his body flowed out like a tidal wave from far away. Feng Yuyin's eyes flashed, and she bit down on her lower lip, and her purple soul power poured out. Break for me! Lu Yuan's eyes revealed a trace of madness, and all the soul power in his body poured out. More than 2,500 kilograms of strength exploded out, and the spear slammed into the barrier. Kacha! Cracks appeared on the barrier, and to Yin Xiang and the others, it was like the sound of a demon's soul. More and more cracks appeared, and the golden light tore through the three-colored barrier. Finally, with a bang, the entire barrier exploded. The spear carried the remaining power and bombarded the three of them, and the huge force caused them to be thrown into the air, and they spat out mouthfuls of blood. Lu Yuan floated to the ground, and his handsome face was pale. The attack just now had exhausted almost all of his soul power, but the result was still good. Looking at the three unconscious people on the stage, Lu Yuan couldn't help but smile. Defeating 3 Soul Grandmasters and Genius Soul Grandmasters at that wasn't something an ordinary person could do. Go take a look. Patting Hal's shoulder, Chris asked him to check on the injuries of the other 3. After all, the 3 of them were rare geniuses. He didn't want them to be wasted here. Hal checked their bodies and nodded to Chris, indicating that their lives were not in danger. Christian breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Lu Yuan, who was still standing in the ring. He couldn't help but admire him. He was indeed worthy of being the disciple of His Majesty the Pope. He was really extraordinary. Cough, cough. Chris walked up to the stage and said in a clear voice, "Students, after a fierce battle, our champion has been decided. He is Lu Yuan. Let's cheer for him." The students below the stage were stunned for a moment before they began to applaud. The other students who entered the top 10 only had deep admiration towards Lu Yuan for becoming the champion. Fighting 1 against 3 and defeating 3 Soul Grandmasters, this kind of heavenly talent deserved to become a champion. Even they couldn't help but be convinced. The other 6 and 7-year-old students took Lu Yuan as a role model to learn from. They hoped that they could be as outstanding as Lu Yuan in the selection 3 years later. Each of them unconsciously set a goal in their hearts. Lu Yuan's arm was raised high by Chris. This moment was his glory. Looking at the admiring, smiling faces below the stage, Lu Yuan felt a sense of satisfaction. This feeling wasn't bad. In the Pope's palace, an image appeared in front of BB Dawn. It was the scene of Lu Yuan's duel. Vast universe C. On the Douluo continent, although technology wasn't advanced, there was a type of soul beast called the mirror beast. The skull of the mirror beast could be used to create tools to preserve images. BB Dawn held the scepter in her hand, her beautiful eyes shining. A smile appeared on her beautiful face. "Teacher, this is?" asked an 11 or 12-year-old girl beside BB Dawn. Looking at the girl beside her, Bibidon's eyes revealed a trace of gentleness. Her red lips opened slightly. "This is the video of the Heaven's Pride Training Camp Selection Competition. You've seen it too. What do you think?" The girl nodded, her voice clear and pleasant. "The quality of this year's training camp students is very high. 3 of them are Soul Grandmasters, and that child seems to be a bit powerful." She pointed at Lu Yuan as she spoke. BB Dawn nodded. "This child is called Lu Yuan. He's 6 years old this year and has the Golden Dragon martial soul. He's also this year's champion. He's a very powerful child. He actually defeated 3 Soul Grandmasters by himself." The girl sighed in admiration. Although she could also defeat 3 Soul Grandmasters, she was already ranked 29. She was 12 years old this year. This child was only 6 years old, yet he was able to defeat 3 Soul Grandmasters. This kind of talent was a bit terrifying. "Nana, I plan to accept him as my second disciple. What do you think?" BB Dawn asked softly. It turned out that this girl was Hulina of the Golden Generation. She was also Bibidon's first disciple. "Teacher, it's your decision. I agree with your opinion." According to the talent Lu Yuan displayed, he was indeed worthy of BB Dawn accepting him as a disciple. That's good." BB Dawn grasped the scepter in her hand. Her beautiful eyes were still watching the video. Lu Yuan had recently become popular, very popular. Now, he finally understood what the celebrity effect was. It had already been 3 days since the last championship. In these 3 days, he had simply enjoyed the treatment of a noble. When he went to the cafeteria, there would be people to get food. When he returned to the dormitory, there would be people to specially prepare hot water. The current Lu Yuan could be said to be a legend in the training camp. Many of the 6 and 7-year-old students in the training camp all regarded Lu Yuan as their idol. One by one, they stepped forward to help him. His popularity in the training camp could be said to be abnormally high. Since the establishment of the training camp, Lu Yuan was the first to graduate. He was also the youngest to win the championship. At the same time, he had also defeated 3 Soul Grandmasters. It could be said that he had created a record. In a short period of time, Lu Yuan could be said to be in the limelight. Although Lu Yuan himself wasn't someone who liked to be in the limelight, it had to be said that with so many little fans, Lu Yuan still felt a little satisfied in his heart. In these 3 days, Lu Yuan was still the same as before. As usual, he cultivated his soul power and exercised his body. He didn't slack off because he had won the championship. All of this made Chris, who was secretly observing him, nod inwardly. This was the temperament that a strong person should have. Neither arrogant in victory nor discouraged in defeat. Pride and arrogance were one's own greatest enemies. What made Chris gratified was that Lu Yuan was indeed a little arrogant, but he wasn't arrogant. It was normal for a young person with strength and talent to be a little arrogant. After all, they had the support of strength. Lu Yuan was undoubtedly a model of both strength and talent. Chapter 48. 3 days later, Lin Feng, Yin Xiang, and Feng Yuyin had mostly recovered from their injuries. Back when Lu Yuan was in his golden dragon fist state, he had unleashed the vast sea spear art's vast sea universe, and its power was truly extraordinary. However, Lin Feng and the other two were soul grandmasters after all, and their soul force was deep. After the barrier was broken, the majority of the spear's power had already dissipated. Although the remaining power was enough to seriously injure the three of them, it wasn't fatal. They only broke a few ribs. As soul masters, the three of them had strong constitutions. With the help of specialized healing soul masters and spirit medicines, they were already out of danger. In 3 days, other than their bones, which still needed some time to rest, their other injuries were more or less healed. The three of them were all silent about their loss to Lu Yuan. They were naturally unwilling to accept it. After all, the three of them were 3 years older than Lu Yuan, and they were all soul grandmasters. In the end, they were still defeated in a 1 versus 3 battle. This result was undoubtedly hard for them to accept. On the other hand, the three of them were quite impressed by Lu Yuan's strength. The strength that Lu Yuan had displayed was indeed very astonishing. He was a true heaven's pride and a monstrous genius. Being defeated by such a person was not a disgrace to the three of them. But other than that, it wasn't all bad news. Chris sent news that although the three of them had lost to Lu Yuan, they were still qualified to join the Pontiff's palace. This was a privilege that only the top 3 could receive. According to the rules, one of the 3 of them had to be eliminated before they could join the Pontiff's palace. Chris's news was a comfort to them. The 3 of them didn't need to compete again to join the Pontiff's palace. This was a pretty good result. As for Lu Yuan, the 3 of them looked at each other with relief in their eyes. A monster like Lu Yuan wasn't someone they could compare to. While Lin Feng and the other 2 were recuperating, Lu Yuan was chatting with Yuan Xian. You're saying you'll go to the Martial Soul Academy after leaving the training camp? Lu Yuan asked. He'd heard of the Martial Soul Academy before. Chuyu from the Kingdom of Sylvis had brought a child called Douluo. He was an innate Class 9 soul beast. Yes, Yuan Xian nodded. Of the students who walk out of the training camp, only the top 3 can join the Pontiff's palace. The rest can go to the Martial Soul Temple. Most of them can join the Martial Soul Academy and enjoy the benefits of being an elite student. Elite? Lu Yuan was curious. Yes, Yuan Xian nodded. The Martial Soul Academy is the best academy on the continent. Even the Heaven Do Imperial Academy and Sionra Empire Academies can't compare. The Martial Soul Academy has a complete set of facilities. It has a top-notch mimicry cultivation environment suitable for all types of soul masters. This is one of a kind on the continent. Furthermore, the Martial Soul Academy has a strong teaching staff. The current president is the Pontiff, and the 2 vice presidents are top-notch soul Douluo. They're also titled Douluo elders. Some students can even receive guidance from these elders if they're lucky enough. A look of yearning appeared on Yuan Xian's face. The Martial Soul Academy was also a place that valued talent. All of the students were divided into several classes. The lowest class was naturally the ordinary students, who made up the majority of the students. Next were the advanced students, who enjoyed certain benefits. They could cultivate in the mimicry cultivation environment for a few days every month. There were quite a few of them in the academy. After that were the elite students. Not only were they allowed to cultivate in the simulated cultivation environment, but they were also given a set amount of cultivation resources every month. They were treated very well, and there weren't more than 100 students in the entire year of the Martial Soul Academy who were like this. At the very top were the core students. Just like their name suggested, they were at the core of the academy and had priority in resources. They were provided with soul beast meat and spirit herbs for every meal, and there were teachers in charge of finding the best soul rings for them. They could cultivate in the mimicry cultivation environment at any time, and if their performance was exceptional, They could even be rewarded with soul bones. Their status was even higher than that of ordinary teachers. There were less than 5 people in the Martial Soul Academy who were like this, and the Golden Generation was a classic example. Yuan Xian's face revealed a trace of envy. I don't dare to dream of becoming a core student, but the top 10 students of the training camp can enjoy the treatment of an elite student. That's quite rare. Lu Yuan understood after hearing Yuan Xian's explanation. If you enter the Martial Soul Academy with your talent, you'll definitely be treated like a core student. Yuan Xian turned to look at Lu Yuan. With Lu Yuan's talent, Yuan Xian was certain that no one in the Martial Soul Academy could compare to him. Even the famous Golden Generation couldn't compare to Lu Yuan in terms of talent. Lu Yuan smiled, but didn't say anything. But with your talent, you'll definitely become the disciple of one of the elders from the Pontiff's Palace. Whether or not you enter the Martial Soul Academy and become a core student isn't that important. Yuan Xian still remembered what Chris had said. The champion of this year's competition could choose an elder as his master. No one else could enjoy such treatment. As an elder's disciple, he wouldn't place too much importance on the identity of a core student. After all, every elder was at least a titled Douluo. With such a powerful backer, why would they care about a little bit of so-called resources? Lu Yuan smiled, but didn't say anything. He couldn't say that it might be different from what Chris was thinking and that he might become the Pontiff's disciple. Saying that would be a little crazy. Lu Yuan wasn't a fool. After Chris's words, his actions in the training camp, and his own speculations, he knew that BB Don had always been paying attention to him. The championship was his final test. Thinking about it, it was very likely that BB Don would accept him as his disciple. If he guessed correctly, he would have to go to the Pontiff's Palace in a few days. When he arrived, he would meet the beautiful Pontiff, who had met a tragic end in the original story. Thinking about it, he couldn't help but look forward to it. More than 3 months had passed since the system had given him the mission. As long as he arrived at the Pontiff's Palace, he would be able to sign in. What kind of reward would the first mission give him? Lu Yuan was very curious. Time flew by, and another 4 days passed. 4 days later, Chris stood alone at the entrance of the training camp. Behind him stood Lu Yuan, Lin Feng, and the other 2. They would be heading to the Pontiff's Palace under Chris's lead. Lu Yuan couldn't hide his excitement. Lin Feng and the others were also looking forward to it. It was in this atmosphere that the 5 of them embarked on their journey to the Pontiff's Palace. Chapter 49. The distance from the training camp to the Pontiff's Palace wasn't far. However, it wasn't easy to reach the Pontiff's Palace. The Pontiff's Palace was in the center of Martial Soul City, while the training camp was outside the city. The journey was more than 50 kilometers. Hence, the 5 of them boarded the carriage early in the morning. With the speed of the carriage, they could reach the Pontiff's Palace before noon. 4 hours passed, and it was already past 10 in the morning. The 5 of them finally arrived outside the Pontiff's Palace. The Pontiff's Palace was heavily guarded. The 5 of them got off the carriage and walked for a long time before arriving. Otherwise, they could have arrived even faster. Without the Pontiff's orders, the 5 of them couldn't barge in. They had to report this to the knights, who would then report it to the Pontiff. They had to obtain the Pontiff's permission before they could enter the Pontiff's Palace. Therefore, they could only wait outside the palace, waiting for BB Don's message. The Pontiff's Palace was huge and majestic. It surpassed all the buildings Lu Yuan had seen before. Even with Lu Yuan's confidence, he couldn't help but feel a little dazed when he saw such a majestic Pontiff's Palace. Lin Feng, Yin Xiang, and the others were even more so. Their eyes were wide open, and they looked like country bumpkins who had never seen the world. BB Don was discussing matters with the various bishop elders in the Pontiff's Palace. Yuguan, how's the matter with the evil soul masters? BB Don asked. BB Don was still furious about the evil soul masters who had massacred Fengming village. The chrysanthemum Douluo bowed slightly and said, Your Majesty, everything has been taken care of. The soul Douluo, the leader of the evil soul masters, has been executed by me on the spot. The rest of the evil soul masters have also been killed. None of them were spared. Well done. Bibidan's voice was crisp and clear. However, it carried a hint of authority. Announce this matter to the world. Let the world know the consequences of provoking the martial soul palace. Yes, your majesty. All the bishop elders replied in unison. All right, that's all. All of you can leave first. Bibidan said. Yes, your majesty. All the bishops left. Only Bibidan, the Jew Douluo, and the ghost law were left in the pontiff's palace. Report. Not long after the bishops left, a knight rushed into the hall and knelt down on one knee. Reporting to your holiness, the chief instructor of the Outer Palace Genius Training Camp, Chris, is waiting for your holiness to summon him with 4 trainees. Oh, they're here, Bibidan whispered. Let them in. Yes. The knight rushed out of the palace and said, His Highness the Pope has ordered that Chris and the others be summoned for an audience. What is this, your holiness? The Jew Douluo asked. Do you still remember the young man who stood up for Foaming Village? Bibidan asked calmly. I remember, the Jew Douluo replied. If I recall correctly, his martial soul seems to be the legendary Golden Dragon, which is a supreme-grade beast soul. Yes. Bibidan nodded slightly and said, I sent this Lu Yuan to the Genius Training Camp. 3 months have passed, and he has also become the champion of the Genius Training Camp. He is a capable child. So that's how it is. The Jew Douluo was enlightened. He recalled what Bibidan had said. Back then, he seemed to have said that as long as Lu Yuan could become the champion, he would be accepted as his disciple. Did that mean that Lu Yuan was going to become the second disciple of the Holy Father? The Jew Douluo couldn't help but become interested. Speaking of which, he had never seen this Lu Yuan before. He wanted to see what was so special about him. After receiving Bibidan's message, Lu Yuan and the others made their way to the Holy Father's palace. After passing through a long flight of stairs, they finally stepped into the Holy Father's palace. Just as Lu Yuan stepped into the Holy Father's palace, the system's voice sounded in his mind. You have arrived at the Holy Father's palace. Sign-in commencing. Sign-in time, 5 minutes. Phew! Lu Yuan couldn't help but feel excited when he heard the system's voice. We pay our respects to your holiness. Following Chris, the 5 of them knelt down on one knee. You may rise. Bibidan's voice sounded. Thank you, your holiness. Chris, are these the top 4 of this year's qualifiers? Bibidan asked. Yes, your holiness. Chris replied respectfully. Which one of you is Lu Yuan? Bibidan asked. Your holiness, this child is Lu Yuan. Chris pointed at Lu Yuan and said, Are you the champion of this year's qualifiers? You are indeed extraordinary. Bibidan had a smile on his face, and his voice was much gentler. Thank you, your holiness, for your praise. I don't dare to accept it. Lu Yuan bowed slightly and said, Hee hee. Bibidan laughed softly. His voice was clear and pleasant to the ears. There was a slight smile on his beautiful face as he said, What an interesting kid. I already know about what happened in Foaming Village. Thank you. This is what I should do, Lu Yuan replied. Bibidan looked deeply at Lu Yuan. Her gaze then turned to Lin Feng and the other 2 and said, Since the 3 of you are in the top 4, you have the qualifications to join the Pontiff's Palace. There will be people who will tell you the details when the time comes. Lin Feng and the other 2 were able to become Soul Grandmasters at the age of 10. Their talent wasn't bad, and they were worth nurturing. However, she was more interested in Lu Yuan. Thank you, your holiness. After hearing Bibidan's words, Lin Feng and the other 3 were very happy. Being able to join the Pontiff's Palace was already a very happy thing. They didn't ask for more. Bibidan nodded and instructed, Chris, you guys can leave. Lu Yuan, stay behind. Yes, your holiness. Chris nodded to Lu Yuan and left the Pontiff's Palace with Lin Feng and the other 2. After Chris and the others left, Bibidan's beautiful eyes stared at Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan also couldn't help but size up Bibidan. Her wine-red hair draped over her shoulders, and her beautiful face was like jade. Time seemed to have not left any traces on her body. Her beautiful face was lovely and moving, like a poppy plant, full of fatal temptation. It had to be said that this woman was enough to be described as a devastatingly beautiful woman. Since Lu Yuan's rebirth, this was the first time he had seen such a beautiful woman. Looking at Lu Yuan, Bibi Don stood up and walked down the throne step by step. When she arrived in front of Lu Yuan, her jade-like hands couldn't help but stroke Lu Yuan's head. Lu Yuan was very handsome. Coupled with his fair skin and cold expression, he was very much like a cold little Shota. Even Bibi Don had a good impression of him. Feeling Bibidon's hand on his head, Lu Yuan couldn't help but relax. The refreshing fragrance coming from her body made Lu Yuan somewhat intoxicated. Looking at Lu Yuan in front of her, Bibidon's mouth curved into a smile. Her red lips slightly opened as she said, "Are you willing to be my disciple?" Hearing Bibidon's words, Lu Yuan's body suddenly trembled. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.